Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Creation Myths. StreamYard is telling me that we are good to go. I'm going to let YouTube tell me that we are good to go. And once I see that that looks and sounds okay, then we can get started for real. I'm also really curious to see if I'm broadcasting in, 320. It sounds good.
Did you,
It
did
actually
you
looks
ever
okay.
did you ever find out what happened with that? Because
Oh,
you were
so
for real in an incredible
that
few
is a
numbers.
funny story. What happened to that? I upgraded my operating system and it defaulted to Wi-Fi. And so
Huh.
my office is in my basement, and I have an Ethernet cable that runs from where the router is to my desk, so I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about having a slow connection. And when I upgraded the OS, it defaulted back to Wi-Fi, and that's
Okay.
why I was
Okay.
broadcasting in 144 or whatever it was.
When there were like 6 pixels,
Yeah, it
like
was
straight
bad.
up, it
Yeah,
was like looking at a
it was like
minimalist.
green, white, green, beige, blue, blue. Yeah, that was it.
It was
It was bad. It looks
not
a
ideal.
lot better right now on my screen. So if everybody else, you know the deal. If there are tech issues, tell me. But it looks comparatively better than it has been. So we'll go with it.
You're looking good to me on my end too. On my YouTube and on StreamYard, so we should be good.
That's great. So, folks, you may have noticed that I have a guest with us tonight. Erica Given is here. Erica, welcome back. Last time we chatted, we spent 2.5 hours dissecting a heavily quantitative paper in excruciating detail. I feel like this one will be somewhat lighter and more accessible.
I I hope so. Today is going to be very bone focused, which I think is perfect. I think bones are intuitive. You can look at them and you can be like, well, a 5-year-old could tell which one may be an odd man out, perhaps.
We'll see.
It's going to be easy. It's going to be intuitive. It's going to be fun. We're going to be talking about. Well, gosh, Dan, it's your show. Introduce the topic.
We are continuing our series on the 2025 Genesis Apologetics Conference, and we have made our way to talk number 5, which is, of course, Dr. Christopher Rupe talking about Homo and Australopithecus and how us evolutionists misrepresent the evidence to preserve our evolutionary narrative. That's what we're going to be hearing today. And because I am a big dum-dum when it comes to bones, I had to bring in the big guns to help me with this one. So before we get to Christopher Rupe, because Erica, we're going to spend a few minutes just introducing everybody to Christopher Rupe. But before we get to that, Erica, take a minute, plug whatever you want to plug, because folks, you may not know this, but Erica also has a YouTube channel. It's called Guts a Gibbon. It's linked down below. And if for some reason you are here and you're not already subscribed to Erica, you should go do that right now.
We're fortunate in that the little circles that we run in, it's mostly one big circle. All our audiences overlap quite a bit.
It's a Venn diagram where you've got Erica and then all the rest of us are in that circle in various combinations.
But there's always a bigger fish. That's the thing. Like, I am also nested within many other, like, pull Professor David. We all nest.
Right, then it's
our audiences
right. It's
nest
another order of magnitude. Yeah,
it's a nice little Matryoshka doll set of audiences. But that's a good thing, right? Because that means that our arguments can filter up and down as they need to and reach as many people as possible. So my background is I am a 5th-year PhD candidate in biological anthropology. I am hoping to graduate at the end of this year. We will see. It's always optimistic. Actually, I got a couple of comments on the video that I posted today that were like, why won't your program just let you graduate already? And I'm like,
that's not how it works.
It's not the program. It's not the program's fault.
It's like, how many words can I write per day?
Yes. Well, and then there's I could get into the minutia on that. Actually, I can't get into the minutia on that because I just finished like a big chunk of pilot data that I had to rerun. That was like, I think my sample size was like 360 something extant primate teeth that I had to download from Morphosource and then section and then landmark and then analyze. And then it was like, okay, yay, my methods worked. Check, that's awesome news. And then it's like, okay, my next step is to do it, but 50% up the canine tooth, which is the big, tall, pointy tooth in a primate's mouth. And then I had to have about 1 million conversations with the methodology behind that with my committee. So then it's a whole thing. The answer is, hopefully I will be graduating soon. And then I can be a doctor, just like Chris Rupe. But what I study is biological anthropology. I study human evolution, and specifically my area of focus is the Miocene apes. So this is a group of apes or hominoids that lived prior to the split between humans and chimpanzees. And the area that I'm actually focusing on for my dissertation are the Miocene apes that are like the earliest of our apes. They're apes, but barely, which is a fun topic to talk about to me, because it's like, my question is, do the characteristics that we use to define the first hominins, are they truly only found in the first hominins? Chris Rupe would be well met to study up on some of these topics.
We'll see. So this is something that I teach in very broadly every year when I do one of my evolution classes. And as I recall, the Miocene apes, is it still like how many million years ago are we talking about for the early Miocene apes?
You're gonna go from about, well, for the early Miocene, it's gonna be about 23 million years ago.
Like 20-ish, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it got pushed back because there's an ape called Camoyopithecus that is probably an ape. It's got molars that look apey, as compared to the Cercopithecoids that are also lurking around, and the stem catarrhines, which there's like a zillion of those guys that have no living descendants. They're not they're some kind of catarrhine, right? But they're not related to any living monkey or any living ape, as in they're not members of any crown group, I should say. They're stem catarrhines.
There you go.
So then the question is, like, when you find these early critters, what group do they actually belong to? We have a similar problem with hominins, and this is a similar problem that Chris Rupe does not understand, that we're going to talk about today. This concept of like linear versus bush, right? Stem versus crown.
Yeah. Oh, I have that in my notes. That is a big theme of this talk, where he thinks when this thing stops, this thing has to start, and then that thing stops, and this other thing has to start, and that's not how it works at all.
It's not how it works. It's not how it works.
We'll get there, folks.
So about 23 million to about the whole Miocene is going to take you to about 5.3 million. But the area that I focus on is 23 to probably about 16 or 17 million years ago, depending on which guys you include as actual hominoids.
Very cool stuff. So
I like it.
Today we are going to watch Dr. as of last year, I believe, 2024, Dr. Chris Rupe butcher all of this stuff and all of the subtlety and all of the nuance in it, and just completely compress everything into this is human or this is not human. And it's rough. And it's rough in a way that I'm going through this and making my notes on this video going, wait a minute, I know why that's wrong. That's wrong. So a little bit of background on Chris Rupe. Chris Rupe actually is a close associate of John Sanford, so they've worked together. So he's featured at Sanford's, his Feed My Sheep Foundation thing, and then Rupe started his own thing, but then he collaborated with Sanford, very famously Erica, on the book Contested Bones. And at some point in there's the book. There it is.
Ta-da!
Now, at some point in there, Chris Rupe went to graduate school and has since earned a legitimate PhD from Loma Linda University, which I looked this up. They are accredited by a legit accreditation agency. The PhD is in, it makes me think it sounds like it's in 7th grade science because it's in earth science. But fair enough, it's a legit accredited program. I have the blurb if anyone wants to see it. Here it is. Spatial textural study of silica clastics in a Navajo sandstone carbonate lens. So this dissertation by Chris Rupe is about deposition, which you think would be something that a young Earth creationist would have a lot of opinions on and be able to give a talk at, I don't know, a hypothetical Genesis Apologetics conference on flood dynamics and deposition, and how a flood leads to the deposition patterns that we see in the geological strata. That's what I would expect, given his expertise.
We have a real epidemic on our hands of creationists who get a degree in something for the DR in front of their name. They want to be a doctor, and then they talk about literally everything besides the thing that they have the doctorate in. And they publish conventional normal stuff within their field, and then we'll just go, to the wind
bad poop
in
crazy.
Every other subject.
Yeah.
The most out there left field. So, we all have to ask ourselves this question, right? So Chris Rupe spent years on this book, Contested Bones, here with John Sanford. Really, most of this is written by Chris Rupe.
Erica, I apologize for interrupting. I just want to highlight this comment. Now do a PhD in fire science, air science, or water science. I just want to appreciate that comment before we move on. Thank you, Chris Decker 8223. That's
the Avatar doctorate pathway. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
John Sanford describes this book that he co-authored with Rupe, which Rupe mostly did, as like very close to the level of work that you would see in a PhD. And I complained a lot about that when I was reviewing this book, and I'm still not done with it. Those videos take a long time to do, and I don't have the time exactly right now to be still working through it, but I do plan on getting back to it eventually. But it's like, I find that hard to believe because a lot of this information, in fact, most of this information is wrong. And interestingly, some of it is going to be wrong in a way that contradicts Chris Rupe today in the talk that he's giving. He's changed his mind in between this book and the talk that he's giving today on a couple of particular specimens. Although he doesn't get that in depth, not as in depth as you would like in this talk because it's such a short conversation. But like it leaves one wondering, if he did the work that is in Sanford's eyes equivalent to a PhD, why did he go on and get a PhD in geology? Why not biological
Earth science.
Yeah, sorry, Earth science.
Earth science.
Right. Earth science. It's like it doesn't make sense to me under a conventional lens. What we're going to see is that the reason is the typical reason. He Icarused too close to the sun, and he realized that you cannot make this shit work. You cannot. It does not work. This is something Todd Wood has also realized, but Todd Wood is brave and cool. And so Todd Wood is like, I recognize that this is extremely difficult and very daunting. I'm still going to try. Right. So
Todd Wood stands on his own among creationists in that regard. And this is a bit of an aside, but he recently gave a talk at the 100th anniversary of the Scopes trial. At the actual courthouse down in Tennessee, and he gave his talk, and there was a reporter there who recorded all the talks. And I haven't done anything with this on the channel yet, but I'm planning to at very least just mention a couple things from that. And everybody should watch Todd Wood's talk. Everybody should watch Joel Duff's talk. Those are the only two I've watched so far, but I'm going to watch the other 7 hours because of course I am. And Todd Wood's talk was really interesting. It was really interesting. It's fascinating. It was, yeah. So now before we move on from Dr. Chris Rupe's dissertation, I just want to point out something that I've been, for various reasons, talking about a little bit here. And I think, Erica, you've mentioned this recently too, because you may have just released a video that maybe touched on this kind of stuff. I want to draw everyone's attention to the very middle of the abstract that you see on screen. See where there's that parenthetical with the percentages there, 0.8 to 11.4% silica dioxide there. Everyone see that? I want you to go to the next sentence there and just read that with me. Textural analysis of silicoclastic grains within carbonate samples was conducted using an AI-driven image analysis application and used to investigate spatial I don't care what the rest of the sentence says. I stopped at AI-driven. Come on, man.
I really hope that this is this is a good application of AI, right? But I'm so poisoned against AI right now and how it's being used by creationists that I see this and I have a knee-jerk reaction where I'm like, okay, he's shortcutting it. Right? I hope that's not the case. I hope that he's using it as a tool instead of a crutch. But this is Chris Rupe we're talking about here. And I'm familiar with Chris Rupe's work. And so I have doubt that that's what's going on here.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. Hope I'm wrong.
Totally agree.
Chris, my door's always open for a conversation with Chris Rupe, by the way. Always. I will drop everything and talk with him.
So those two things that you just said are a great segue. You're familiar with his work and you're always open to a conversation with him, because before we move on any further, I have a really funny story I want to share with everybody about Chris Rupe from a couple years ago. And then I promise we'll get to the conference video that we're going to go through. But so a few years ago, somewhere, I don't remember where, in some article or some video somewhere, Chris Rupe, instead of talking about skeletons, he talked about something genetics related, something that I could talk about. And I was like, okay, that I can't talk to you about skeleton. I don't know any of that stuff. But I can talk to you about whatever this genetics thing is. I forget what it was because it was probably 2 years ago. It was before he was Dr. Chris Rupe. So it was about 2 years ago, I think. And so I reached out to him and I said, hey, my name's Dan. I'm an evolutionary biologist. I got this channel. Here's a link to the channel. I bring creationists on. Like, I try to talk to people here. I've done Behe. I've got, like, here's some links. If you want to just see what I do, like, here's what I do. I saw that you did this thing. Oh, sorry. I saw that you did this thing. I would love to talk to you. If you want to set up a time to come on and talk about it, I'd love to talk about it. So he gets back to me. He was very nice to me, and he says, hey, Dan, thanks for reaching out. Appreciate you reaching out. Look, I'm really busy. Family, young kids, working on my dissertation. I'm really busy. Plus, this thing, it's not, yeah, I mentioned it, but it's not really my area of expertise. But let me see if I can connect you with somebody who could actually, talk to you about this thing specifically. And then, I swear to God, this man copies Rob Carter into the email thread and goes, Rob, I want you to meet Dan. Dan had this question. You could read it below in the thread about what... And so I just imagine if that had happened in person, right? Where it's like, Chris is like, oh, I can't, but come over here. Let me meet my friend Rob. Rob, this is Dan. It's just like, we're familiar with each other's work.
We've met before. We've met once before.
Yeah. So that was a hilariously awkward email.
I don't know, man. I mean, a similar thing, I mentioned this in the video that I released earlier today, but a similar thing happened to me with Rob Stadler, where it was like, I emailed Blom, and then Blom was like, hey, why is everybody emailing me about this? He's like, I'll just reply to both of you at the same time.
Everybody all at once, yeah.
Yeah, I believe Andrew was also included in that. And it was like me, Rob, and Andrew Cumming. And it was like, he's like
these silly creationists always about my paper.
Yeah. It was very, it was very classic. I do want to note too, before we go on, there are a couple of people who are talking about like the utility of AI. I agree, there is a utility to AI, and I am allowing for the possibility that that's what's going on with Chris Rupe here. I'm expressing that I have a knee-jerk reaction to AI right now because I'm just coming off reviewing a lot of creationist AI content that was subpar. So it could be totally for a legitimate reason. Science can use AI for good. It has been used for good. Let's hope that's the case.
But we're not looking into the dissertation today. We're doing a different thing. Now, Erica, you did mention that you released a video today.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and it was one of your short form videos. It was like 2.5 hours long, give or take.
It was a mini. Yeah. It was a little mini episode. It's funny that you say that because I just got done recording it's my book in progress, Dan. I just got done recording the first section of that monster. And that shit is like almost 4 hours long. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, I cannot release this all at once.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense though, because I mean, we've talked about the project that you're working on, and it is a book. And, if you're recording it in video form, think about like a nonfiction audiobook is going to be 10, 15, 20 hours long. Like, there you go. It's long.
It's long. So we'll find a way to.
Folks, we are here tonight to talk about Chris Rupe's talk at the 2025 Genesis Apologetics Conference. I promise we will start that talk momentarily. So there's not a lot in the beginning. It's like, introduction to like, hi, I'm Chris Rupe. We can watch that, but I know you have a bunch of timestamps. I have a bunch of timestamps, so I'm just going to let it play. We'll do the little intro, like let everyone meet Chris Rupe thing. And then the first timestamp that I have is actually at like 50 seconds, so it won't take long to get to something relevant. Here we go, folks.
Well, the Lord had me start a ministry called Back to Genesis, and the vision is to restore a biblical view of origins in the church and culture by upholding the authority of the Word of God and proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm so grateful for Dr. Biddle's talk because he was calling us back to the authority of Scripture, trusting God's Word, don't compromise by accepting the millions of years and adding it to the Bible. And so I want to continue in that vein, but I want to focus on paleoanthropology, which is a mouthful. But that word simply means I'll define it in a moment. I'll be focusing on falsifying the...
I just want to say, in terms of just the craft of giving a talk, you don't go, big word, I know that's a mouthful, and then cut yourself off to not define it. Don't do that. Just nitpicking the craft, I know, but like, don't do that.
I want to point out that he must think so little of his audience. Paleoanthropology. It's got 8 syllables, right? But you can break this down into 3 roots: paleo, anthro, and pology. Paleoanthropology. It's not that difficult of a word. Everybody knows what paleo means. Anth means human. Ology is studia. So it's the study of old humans. This is not very difficult. And I think that he's going to demonstrate this later on. But this is a classic thing with creationists where it's like the professional ones oftentimes don't think very highly of their audience's level of education. They don't, they handhold them and treat them as if they're in elementary school. If I was giving this exact talk, I would do, as Dan said, I would be like, I study paleoanthropology. So I study human evolution, specifically look at the fossil record. That's what you said. People can fill in the blanks.
He does this later on. We'll get to it. There's some very obvious disrespect for his audience's intelligence later on.
Ape to man story. Who's ever heard of things like Lucy, Neanderthals, Homo erectus, maybe Australopithecus, all those technical words?
Okay.
So paleoanthropology is
all those technical words, Erica.
So everybody heard what he said. He goes Lucy, Neanderthals, Homo erectus, Australopithecus. Lucy is an Australopith, right? Like, I don't know. Surely he practiced the speech, right? I guess I don't know why he didn't say Lucy. She's a type of Australopithecus. Neanderthals, Homo erectus. We've all heard of these. Like, I'm nitpicking now, but this is so much better than the stuff that's coming.
Oh, it's gonna get so bad.
Branch of paleontology involves the study of ancient human fossils, stone tools, artifacts, and we can even extract DNA from fossils now and sequence the.
I just want to say, every time they say that, I don't know. Every time they say that, I lose like a day of my lifespan because you can't get DNA from actual permineralized fossils. You can get DNA from preserved remains that are not fully fossilized, but you can't get DNA from fossils. That's why we don't have T-Rex genomes.
I think, too, that it's funny to hear him say this because they're talking about pulling DNA from these, but then you'll have the types like Nathaniel Jeanson who think that this aDNA is completely untrustworthy. Like,
yeah.
He thinks that, and I don't, you'll know this better than me, Dan, but I'm fairly certain that Jeanson thinks it's like contamination. Like, he doesn't think that we're looking at even highly degraded genomes. He thinks that we're not even looking at genetic material.
Don't ask me to get into Jeanson's head. It is a dark, twisted place. And that
labyrinthine.
I can't spend time in there for fear of losing my own mind. You look into the void long enough, you know what the void looks back into you. I don't know I don't think Jeanson's making a coherent argument about what it is. I just think he knows you can't accept it as valid sequence data, therefore it's not valid sequence data. I don't think there's more sophistication beyond that because I've literally had this conversation with Jeanson and his answer is gibberish and I have no idea. But like he doesn't have an answer for why it's invalid. And you can look at things like cytosine to uracil enrichment, you look at things like homozygosity, and all of it points to it's the exact age we think it is, right? Jeanson doesn't have a coherent argument against it. Most younger creationists accept it as valid. Rob Carter, very notably.
That's why I thought it was so interesting. That's why his position is so strange, right? Whatever. Let's continue. Through.
Yeah, it's weird.
Genome of things like Neanderthals, and it's taught us a lot about the true biblical view of creation. So what are hominins? When I say that word, people can just glaze over and say, I don't want to even hear this. It sounds boring. Well, sometimes it can be. So hominins are,
it can be boring. 74 people watching right now.
Look, man, you could say it's boring all you want, but this thing is a massive industry here on YouTube, and it's a pretty successful it's a pretty successful subfield of paleontology.
And
what's
it's your
funny
field.
to me, I mean, I love it. I think it's fascinating. And what I will say is, if people find paleoanthropology dry or uninteresting, they don't have a good teacher. I don't think I've ever had a student come through my class, and granted, I'm like super psyched to talk about this stuff, but I don't think I've ever had a student come through my class who's been bored, at least not visibly. I mean, nobody's on their phones. people show up. Attendance is high. I don't even take it.
How many students do you have, though? How many students do you have
normally, yeah, it's pretty good. When I taught labs, I had about 35 in a classroom. When I taught honors, significantly more than that.
Yeah, I have about 470 at a time. And
nuts.
In a room that big, you might think the person at the front of the room can't tell when you're asleep, but
They can.
I can tell.
They can. Oh, for sure.
And I can tell. It happens every time.
I'm just wondering, like, if Chris Rupe finds this subject to be boring, or he thinks that there are aspects of it that could be taken that way, he's either not a good teacher or he doesn't find the subject interesting himself, and neither of those are good. It isn't. Which, again, we're asking the question, like, why is he giving this particular talk?
Should have given a talk on flood deposition models.
Now, there's a, no offense, geologists, sorry, earth scientists, there's a boring topic to me.
Oh man, that's a real.
Not that I don't find deposition riveting, but
that's caffeine in a talk right there.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
Let's do it.
Evolutionary tree, if you will, or primate phylogeny. And what it shows here is you have lemur on one side.
All right, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. We don't need him to interpret the thing. We know the thing. So
that's also not lemur on one side. Like he's also wrong about that, right? Like
just whatever.
Like you have your strepsirrhines, which includes lemurs, lorises, and galagos.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but it doesn't matter. None of this matters. Actually, it doesn't matter at all.
All right, this part does matter a little bit. So I'm going to let this play for about a minute. This part actually matters.
Before you do that, before you do that, Dan, I want to let everybody know, like, what you're missing here is Chris Rupe is trying to give the base level understanding to his audience of what they're going to talk about. So, what is a primate? Why do we consider humans and chimpanzees to be apes together, right? Like, and then specifically looking at humans and chimps, what are hominins? And I'm going to tell you right now, hominins colloquially are anything that is considered more closely related to humans than it is to our closest living relatives, the chimpanzees and the bonobos. So that's what he's going to get into here, and he's going to say some dumb stuff.
And yeah, I really just want to show the bit about what evolutionists claim here, because it's not like an arbitrary thing. So let's just...
Last common ancestor, which is believed to be something that looks like a chimp that lived 6 million years ago. So in the blue, you see all these different species.
Right, I'm going to skip this. I want to get to the map. Here we go.
Australia, Indonesia. I'm going to focus on just East Africa. That's where evolutionists believe humans originated. And when I say humans, I'm going to use the technical term Homo, because that's the genus that we're a part of. And evolutionists claim that the genus Homo evolved in East Africa. So we'll focus in Ethiopia, the Hadar region, Kubifora in Kenya, Laetoli, places like that in East Africa.
All right, I just want to point out that, like, the whole evolutionist claim thing is based on literal mountains of evidence in terms of fossils and genetics that point to, like, an East Central African origin for both genus Homo and Homo sapiens as a species within genus Homo. It is completely uncontroversial that is where it's just like giant neon arrows pointing straight to, like, Ethiopia.
It's everything too. It's the nesting pattern. It's the linkage disequilibrium. Excuse me. It's the relative homozygosity levels. It's absolutely anything you can imagine is going to point a big, massive, as Dan said, neon sign directly to Eastern Africa. Now, what I'll say here too is that he has mischaracterized, I think, the situation a little bit by saying that evolutionists would picture the last common ancestor between humans and chimps as something that was chimp-like. It wasn't. And in fact, I personally subscribe to the opposite of that. I think that the common ancestor amongst all apes, and even specifically between humans and chimpanzees, was pretty much a generalized arboreal ape-looking thing, right? It would have been a hominoid, but it wouldn't have had any close alliances to chimps or to gorillas or to humans. It would have been fairly generic. The reason I say that is because when we look at the Miocene ape record and the apes that we have, they are all generic. So think about something that chimpanzees do is they knuckle walk, and we don't have a single knuckle walker in the fossil record.
That is a highly derived trait that is unique to that lineage that is not ancestral and generalized across all of, right.
And it makes sense because they've been evolving for just as long as we have.
Right. And genetically, if you look at the chimp genome and the human genome and what we think the common ancestor between the two is, there is a case to be made, and I think it's persuasive, that the chimps are more derived from that ancestral state than we are from that ancestral genomic state. And
there is a very good case to be made for that. And chimpanzees also, when we look at things like the dimorphism of these Miocene apes, which can give you a clue as to the social systems of them, like how they grouped, what their relative group size was, how males competed for access to females, how females competed for resources, and so on and so forth. It looks like even the chimpanzee social system is itself highly derived, which impacts their physical characteristics. It impacts the differences or lack thereof between the sexes. It influences their cognition, as if they're, whether or not they're forming these coalitions to get what they want, which males do in chimps and females do in bonobos. It's super fascinating. They also knuckle walk in a way that's distinct from gorillas. They have more mobile wrists. They don't lock them as rigidly as gorillas do, owing to the fact that they spend more time in the trees, right? They're these weird apes, but all the apes are actually fairly derived compared to the generic critters of the Miocene, because the Miocene is odd in that there's so many apes. I mean, we're talking dozens and dozens of species just that we know of living across this period of time. And then what seems to happen is that monkeys are evolving back in Africa, and the old world monkeys, the Cercopithecus, start to come about, and then they almost spread out and replace the apes. And they push the apes to the edge of their niches, which is what makes apes so highly specialized, right? So monkeys are now the generic group where most of them all look really similar, and apes are specialized in their locomotion, in their diet, in their social system. It's really cool stuff to me, but it's not accurate to say, at least in my opinion, that the common ancestor between humans and chimps was chimp-like.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just want to highlight a couple chats before we move on here. So first of all, we have Stephen Clinard, 1776, for $5. Thank you, Stephen. Oh, sorry, Stephen G. It's a goddamn shame Chris Rupe didn't become a paleo expert.
The paleo experts. He coined that term, by the way, because paleoanthropology is too hard of a word. Just like he said at the beginning of this chat, that's his bugaboo.
I also love here from Kiwi Runa 9077, which I hope Kiwi is a reference to your location. I can't see New Zealand on his map. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you were missing both New Zealand and someone else commented Tasmania. I don't see Tasmania. It's small, but I don't see Tasmania on there either. And then Darren Simmons, do I want to know where he thinks we originated? It's Mesopotamia, is it? Yeah, it's Mesopotamia. And that's also where the Tower of Babel would have been, so that's where the epicenter of radiation would have been, which is wrong genetically. We can, directly document that. It's, Ethiopia, which, by the way, the best approximation is that, I'm going to go to the grave saying this, creationists should just get on board, Kilimanjaro equals Ararat. It solves so much of your genetics problems. It solves so many of your genetics problems.
They won't do it.
Stick it there. Just stick it in Africa, and it solves so many of your problems. And then you don't have to radiate until Babel, which would also be there, but obviously it's gone because it fell down because it was a tower, right? So just I'm telling creationists, someone pick up this ball and run with it. Kilimanjaro equals Ararat solves a ton of your genetics problems.
We do so much legwork for them on this. It's unbelievable.
I'm not even getting paid by AIG to throw that out there. That's a freebie for everybody.
It's a freebie. We give these tips every stream.
Just come on, guys, fix it. All right. So in this next section, he's talking about falsifiability, which sets up what he's doing in this talk. So let's do that.
Africa. So a key principle of science is falsifiability. Everyone say falsifiability.
But he couldn't do everyone say paleoanthropology.
Yeah.
All right, good. So I know you're listening and I'm doing okay. So theories must have a definable criteria by which they can be empirically tested. In other words, falsifiability means having the potential of being refuted. It must have some criteria by which you can say this cannot be true or can be true, right? Otherwise, it's not science. An evolutionary biologist named J.B.S. Haldane is a famous evolutionist. And in the 1900s, early 1900s, he was rumored to have said something. And I think there is some good evidence for it. But he says finding a fossil rabbit in Precambrian rocks would basically cause him to lose his faith in evolution. Now, the Precambrian is believed to be older than 540 million years old. So he's saying this should not be possible in an evolutionary worldview. And that's his kind of like a joke. But I want you to think about this in terms of human evolution. Is there a similar type of criteria that we can use to falsify ape-to-man scenario or to test it? And I would say there is.
I want to pause there. I want to pause right there to highlight this super chat because he says there is, and Gupdo3 for $2 says falsifiability, the things Yex don't have. Yeah.
No, they have it in theory until it's met, and then God could have done it that way.
And then
Like
God just did it that way. Yeah.
we saw this with Stadler. We've seen it with the heat problem. We were going to see it with increasingly more subjects, I think, moving forward. And that's what makes it so frustrating to argue with so many of them, right? Is that it's like they and the worst part is they won't even really own the fact that that's not scientific. I believe Behe did with you once, Dan, that intelligent design isn't explicitly a scientific idea yet, but he thinks it's going to get there.
Sal also does that. Sal Cordova will be like, we need to stop trying to get like creationism into schools because it's not science, but we just need to hammer evolution, right? Is kind of the thing. Which, look, fair enough, but nobody's going to listen to you if, one, you get evolution completely wrong every time you talk about it, and two, you have nothing better to offer. So, good luck.
Well, that's really interesting because Sal, and I believe Rebecca does that as well, like to some degree.
Yeah.
And then we also have Rob Stadler, and then we also have several other like isolated creationists who are willing.
Rob God made the specific mutations happen in the order they happened, Stadler.
Yeah, you mean design mutability, Dan? The scientific concept of design mutability.
Right, yeah, of course.
This is the end game here, folks, right? Like, and Dan and I and many others who are sort of in our cohort have been saying this for years. Like this is the termination of creationism as science continues to advance. It's going to be, God could have done it that way.
You can't disprove it. God did it that way. It's fine.
But also he didn't use evolution. Like that's the part that's so goofy, is that it's like he could have done it that way, but it isn't what it looks like. Okay.
Yeah, he could do literally anything that made it look this way, except the processes that we observe and understand that would make it look that way. That he did not do. But anything else could have done to make it look that way.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine if anybody did this for something like germ theory, right? Where you're like, it looks exactly like germ theory, but in actuality, it's like small like fairies or gremlins or something.
Erica, have you never met the viruses don't exist people?
Oh my God. No, I make it my business to not meet them.
Have you never met the person who will go, viruses don't exist? And I can literally be like, this is an electron micrograph I took of viruses. Like, I took this picture of I took this picture. Those are viruses. And they're like, no, those don't exist.
They're like that. Sorry, Dan, that shit is fake. It's the same thing with the shape of the Earth, right? I mean, like
there's a scale bar. Like they're not atoms, they're not cells. Like what? They're not protein. Like I took a picture of it.
They don't care. They don't care.
I know.
L plus ratio for conventional science.
I just love that your hypothetical is a thing that actually exists.
Honestly, until you said that, I'd forgotten that those people did exist. Right? It's them and like the mud flood people. I forget that those two groups are real groups that exist. To me, they rank with like the birds aren't real people, but the birds aren't real people are joking. For now,
right.
For now, they're joking.
Yeah, don't give them ideas.
Now look at this tree. This is a typical human evolution tree. I could have showed you many examples, and it looks kind of confusing, doesn't it? You can see all these twisted branches. And what they've been saying for decades, I've been tracking their quotes in scientific journals. For decades, they've been saying things like this. Even with all the fossil evidence and analytical techniques from the past 50 years, a convincing hypothesis for the origin of humans, Homo, remains what? Elusive. And Bernard Wood is an expert.
Hit me.
So we're talking about Bernard Wood here, right? I've met Bernard Wood. He's a super sweet guy. Bernard Wood is perhaps best known for, well, he's best known to me and to many others for this paper he authored with Collard in 1999 called The Genus Homo. And the idea was we need to find some way to define genus Homo. The whole reason this paper existed in the first place was because it was getting extremely difficult by 1999 to actually parse the difference between some of these later members of Australopithecus and the earliest members of genus Homo. And that makes sense, right? From an evolutionary perspective, the later members of Australopithecus, if that genus is ancestral to genus Homo, should look the most like genus Homo. And then the first members of genus Homo, if they're a descendant of Australopithecus, should look the most like Australopithecus, right? So it's getting really difficult to actually parse this out. Collard and Wood proposed that the way that we should do this is we should take some of the most primitive members of genus Homo, which at the time was Homo habilis, which is this guy here, and Homo rudolfensis, which is this guy here. And he said, take these guys and just put them in Australopithecus, right? And then define genus Homo behaviorally. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that works, except it's completely subjective, right? Not only that, but people who were around at that time were already starting to say, okay, but those behaviors show up like relatively suddenly for now. But these behaviors likely didn't show up suddenly in actuality. So what are we going to do if we find out that these behaviors appear earlier than we thought? And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. When we found out that cut-marked bones are associated with genus Australopithecus at Dakiqa, when we found out that stone tools are associated with either Australopithecus or Kenyanthropus platyops at Lamequi, right? When we found out that the growth rates slowly change over time, that we don't suddenly have the human-like growth pattern of a long childhood and adolescence and an extended post-reproductive period, like that doesn't show up almost until Homo sapiens. Even Homo erectus doesn't grow up the way that we do. Collard and Wood would not be able to make their definition of genus Homo sick. And matters got worse when, as time went on, by 2016, we had specimens of genus Homo, which were as old as 2.8 million years of age. They're wickedly primitive. The Lamequi mandible, it's super primitive. It looks very similar to Australopithecus, but not quite. It has a couple of the hallmarks that are associated only with later genus Homo. Now, this tree that you can see on Rupe's slide here has two problems. One, it's an artistic rendering. That's why it looks so crazy, because it's supposed to be a twisted tree that's showing how gnarled and complicated human evolution really is. The more fossils we find, the more filled out it gets. This is something that Charles Darwin predicted in the mid-1800s, right? He said, as we continue to find more of these fossils, it's going to get harder to parse out who belongs where. Secondarily, this tree was made in 2014, right? That's over a decade ago. We have found, let's see, how many new hominin species have we found since 2014? We've got Homo naledi, we've got Homo luzonensis, we've got Denisovans as a whole. We have the East Asian archaics grouping as their own distinct cluster that is not late surviving Homo erectus. That's at least 4. Oh, I'm sorry. We have whatever early genus Homo actually turns out to be. It's unnamed right now. It's not habilis. It's something completely different. We have arguably Australopiths like Australopithecus barrel-ghazali or Dioramida. And some people argue that Australopithecus africanus, STW573, should be a new species, Australopithecus prometheus. Right. So this is a lot of, and some of these were pitched prior to 2014, but like have been more successfully argued since then. The point is, this is an outdated figure. Also, it's artistic, right? And also, Bernard Wood is like the guy that is trying to propose a behavioral and distinct cutoff point for genus Homo as compared to Australopithecus. And I know for a fact that that idea is not consensus, because as time has worn on, his pet idea that this would work, he's a grades guy instead of a clades guy, it simply doesn't. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, because neither Chris Rupe nor Casey Luskin nor Rob Carter nor anybody who decides to talk about the origin of genus Homo ever deigns to talk about my favorite paper on the subject, which is Australopithecus to Homo, the transition that wasn't, by Kimball and Vilmore from 2016. And we're going to talk about that later, too. I have a couple of quotes I want to read from it. Let's continue.
So that covers this little segment here beautifully. So I'm going to jump ahead to about 5:56. Erica, do you have anything between wherever we are? We're at 4:37, so I'm going to jump about a minute. Do you have anything in there that you want to do in your list of timestamps? While you're checking... I'm just going to highlight a super chat from Prixie Purple for $5. Thank you, Prixie Purple. I appreciate that. It's so confusing. There are just so many big words. Don't bother trying to understand it. Just trust me. Yes. And this is a very common thing that creationist speakers will do for their audiences. There's a example of this that I know very well. That was Georgia Purdom, where she was giving a talk on some genetics thing. And she said basically, like, you don't have to look into this any further. And the irony was perfect, because the thing she was displaying as she said that it was one of those classic creationist like omissions, where if you looked at it, what happened is it was a sentence in a paper that seemed to say you should doubt XYZ that we're talking about. But then there were a list of references there that she cut out of the quote. And
Of course.
specifically, the papers, authors that she was quoting were criticizing the four papers they were referencing, not the practice as a whole. But it was preceded by, look, you don't have to look into this. Even the evolutionists are saying we should be skeptical of this. And it was like, literally, that person is like they're beefing over their turf is what's happening there. And you're generalizing it to make your audience think that this is all invalid and telling them not to. Don't look too deeply. Just, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of deal. They do this all the time.
I mean, that's what Rupe's going to do later, right? Is he's going to say that there's a gigantic conspiracy afoot.
Oh, yeah.
Now I will say this note that you can see here, Dan, at 506.
Yeah, 506. Hang on, let me go back.
Yeah, 506.
This one?
A little bit more. It should have a figure with some question marks.
Oh, here you go. Hang on. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. So Rupe I don't think we're going to talk about this. So Rupe gets mad about this because there's question marks.
Oh,
he says he doesn't like the idea that there isn't a distinct ancestor-descendant relationship that's being proposed by specific species. You guys, Chris Rupe makes a very big deal in the next several minutes. I don't think we're going to touch on it, but we might. I can't remember what we're talking about or not. He's going to make a very big deal about the fact that scientists can't agree on which species of Australopithecus is ancestral to Homo. He's mad that they're disagreeing whether it's Australopithecus afarensis or Australopithecus africanus or Australopithecus sediba. That doesn't matter, right? I mean, it matters. It matters. It's an interesting question, but you are not going to find anybody in paleontology generally that's going to create an ancestor-descendant relationship like that. That's just not how it works. The odds are so slim that you're going to find the specific species that gave rise to an entire genus of animals down the line, which is why instead, paleoanthropology has been teaching for decades now that it isn't a specific species that's ancestral, but more than likely it's genus Australopithecus. And he's even going to show quotes that he's going to take issue with where he's like, they'll say that it could be one of many species of Australopithecus that's ancestral to Homo. Yes, that is true. That's how science works. This is like taking issue with using the word probably. And I can't help you with that. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of how science is supposed to work. Yeah.
So I'm going to let it go for about a minute and a half here. First, I am going to highlight a super chat from Doug Meeks for $9.99. Doug, that's very generous of you. Thank you.
Oh, that's coming up.
Did I miss the part where he argues Australopithecus is actually a pygmy Homo sapien? So he never actually says that outright, but that is the implication, that Australopithecus is from the neck down, fully human, we'll get there, but just smaller. That's the implication of a large chunk of what we're going to talk about in a little bit. He hasn't said it yet, but he will get to that point. So let's do this for about a minute and a half. This will take us, Erica, to about 7:35 is where we're going here. And this part is somewhat self-contained, and this is where Rupe commits one of the major errors that needs to be pointed out here.
Human genus first evolved. That's what he's claiming here. But then in 2015, they found more fossils. This is a jawbone, a lower jawbone, half jawbone. And they're saying, well, this dates according to their dating methods. I don't accept their dates. But for the sake of argument, what they're saying is, look, now the human genus goes back further than 2.5. We found a human jawbone. It's 2.8 million years old. And so if you look at this other tree diagram, where does Homo begin? Well, let's start in the 70s. In the 70s, there was a controversy known as the KBS Tuff controversy. There was a stratigraphic marker that they dated. It was an ash tuff. They used potassium argon dating. Long story short, they had a huge dispute in the field of paleoanthropology. And they ended up settling on the origin of the genus Homo around 1.8 million years ago. Then in 1997, they found an upper jawbone. They said, well, maybe it's around 2.3 million years old, the genus Homo. And then they found the one I just showed you. They said, well, now actually, maybe it's even older. Maybe it's about 2.8 million years old is when it represents the origin of the genus Homo. So notice there's a trend here. They keep pushing back the origin of the human genus older and older and older, earlier and earlier and earlier. In the future, I predict it might even go back to 3 million years ago, maybe even further. Now, why am I saying all that? I want you to understand this is a problem for them. You can only push back the genus Homo so far. before you dethrone Lucy and other supposed candidate ancestors to man.
Okay. I just want to point out for everybody here that Chris Rupe seems to think that evolution works the way the famous March of Progress figure works, where it's like a little monkey and then a chimp and then a this and eventually it's a human, right? That's apparently how he thinks it works, where when one group starts, the other group must stop. And if the other group continues, then the next group can't start yet. But that's not how it works. All of these things coexist and overlap, and it's messy. And like, either he just fundamentally does not I don't know how many times I've said this in my like YouTube career, but either he just fundamentally does not understand how this works at all, like at a fundamental level does not understand evolution, or he is misrepresenting it for his lay audience. It is one of those two things.
Those are the only two options. I'm going to take a minute to share some stuff here. I feel like we need to contextualize this for everybody because Rupe seems to not, I know this is crazy, but Christopher Rupe seems to not know how filled out the hominin fossil record is, which is strange given he wrote an entire book that's supposed to be about that very topic.
That's weird.
But I digress. I'm going to share my screen here in a sec, Dan. Let me just pull this up. I'm actually going to be pulling from one of my lecture slides for this because I think it's going to be perfect. Let's pull up. We're going to do model in the middle and human origin.
While you're doing this, I just want to, if US, why are there still English people? How creationists think. Like, yeah, I mean, you could pull a million examples of this, right? If dogs, why still wolves? Like, it's because lineages coexist after they branch from each other. All right, I am.
You can do it that
by.
way. All right, one sec. Let me just pull this up really quickly. Come on. Where is it? Where was what I'm looking for? It's a nice, simple. I should have pulled this up beforehand, but I didn't think that I was going to need it this early. I was sort of hoping that it was gonna come in a minute. Modern Homo sapiens, maybe. There it is.
It's just why are there still monkeys? Yeah, why are there still monkeys?
All right.
I don't know.
This is a slide that I inherited. Share screen. So, credit to one of my advisors here. What is going on? Why is this not giving me the option to? Oh, there it is. Okay, hold on. Share screen.
Okay, this is good. If science, why still creationism? Okay, that's funny. That's good.
All right. Hopefully you can see that, Dan.
If ribs, why still dust? Now we're just going to do a million of these for the next hour.
Yeah, literally. Okay, all right. It's saying I clicked cancel. 1 second. Window. There we go. Oh, I'm an idiot. Okay, can you see that?
I got you. I'm going to add to stage.
So
before pressing a screen. Oh, I have to remove this, and then I need to add that. There we go.
So what we're looking at here is on our x-axis, we have time. We have 7 million years ago on the left to present day. And what I hope is immediately obvious to people, and I want to make sure you can see. Can you see my cursor, Dan?
I can see your cursor, yes.
Okay, awesome. So over here in the blue, we have genus Homo. In orange or yellow here, we have Australopithecus. And then earlier than that, we have our earlier hominins. We have Paranthropus. What you'll notice is that there's very few solid lines here because we can't say for certain who is ancestral to who.
Therefore, it's false. Therefore, it's false, Erica. That's
literally therefore
it's false. Storytelling.
Straight up storytelling. We're just guessing, probably, right? Now, our earliest member of genus Homo, if we want to use that Leddy-Gararu mandible that I was talking about earlier at 2.8 million years ago, and I'm actually very comfortable saying that that is a member of genus Homo because they found more fossils. And I know many of the people who are on that team. They're at Leddy-Gararu. Genus Homo is present at Leddy-Gararu in Eastern Africa by 2.8 million years ago. That's, so far as we know, the first appearance of genus Homo, right? Now, Australopithecus starts all the way back at about 4.2 million years ago with Australopithecus anamensis. So we have like a whole lot of time, like over 1 million years using current dates, right? What Rupe is going to suggest is that Homo might be pushed back as far back as 3 million years. What if that happened, right? What if the earliest member of Homo was actually 200,000 years older than we think right now? Doesn't matter. That straight up does not matter. Because the way that evolution works and the way that this Cambrian rabbit would need to work for Rupe, even though it doesn't even work in that context for like actual just fallacious reasons, right? We understand how evolution works. Something doesn't have to go extinct just because it leaves a progenitor. But even if it did, you would need the first member of genus Homo to appear contemporaneous with the first member of Australopithecus.
Right. That would be the requirement. Yeah.
That would be the requirement. So what would actually need to happen is this Homo bar right here would need to stretch all the way back like that.
Yeah.
Which it has not, and it will not. Because, as it turns out, Australopithecus isn't a monolith that's defined by a single set of very discrete characteristics. Neither is genus Homo. There's evolution within these genera as well as between them. So the earliest members of Australopithecus, like Anamensis over here, are really primitive compared to the latest members of Australopithecus, like Australopithecus sediba. Likewise, here's our first member of Homo, and the first one we have a cranium for is Homo habilis, and I'm going to show in a second. And it's really, really tiny brained and really, really primitive compared to Homo sapiens or Neanderthals or Neanderthals are here or Denisovans, right? So Dan, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to switch over to something different, to a different picture that I
just think, you know, all of you pointy-headed academics and your nuance and your facts trying to make sense of data, just like, come on.
It's just like,
come on,
right? Goofy, like, come on, goofy shit. Let's do. I'm gonna show you this picture. See if we can share this. What I'm gonna share with you next is a photo that is actually. You know what? Let's do this instead. Let's make me big, Dan. Can you make me big?
I'm gonna make you. Hang on. I have to make you big. You're big.
All right. So hopefully everybody can see me here. I'm kind of weird. The top of my head is chopped off. Maybe it's only for me.
I think it looks okay on my screen. Let's check YouTube. You look fine on YouTube on my screen.
Perfect. So this here is a 3D print of the composite of Australopithecus afarensis, right? What that means is that they've taken a bunch of different crania and used it to create a single cranium that's representative of the species. So this doesn't have the nuance. This isn't like a single specimen. This isn't an actual fossil. This is a composite specimen. I'm showing this to you so that I can compare it to Australopithecus africanus, Mrs. Ples. This is a 3D print of an actual fossil, just so you can get an idea. And of the bits of Mrs. Ples that are incomplete, there are none. The whole thing is complete. The only thing that's missing are the teeth. Fortunately, there are teeth associated with it and other fairly complete members of Australopithecus as well. So here's our representative of Australopithecus. Let's compare this guy to the first member of genus Homo. Now remember, Rupe thinks that if it's in genus Homo, it's the same as Homo sapiens, right? He has made that equivocation multiple times in this talk. He's going to make it many more times. I want you to show you what he thinks is so clearly different from Australopithecus as a genus. And here it is. The first member of genus Homo, Homo habilis. The brain case size difference between the two of these is, let's see, this is 550 at maximum.
Can you tilt them like forward so that we could see, like that, like so that we could see kind of the top view of the cranium there? Can we? Exactly. Right. So like I said earlier, I'm a big dum-dum with bones. I couldn't tell those things apart. If you said to me, Dan, which is Homo and which is Australopithecus, like I couldn't tell you.
Well, and I'm going to take a moment here in a second. I'm going to bring this back up later, but I want you guys to keep this picture of these two next to one another in your mind, right? Because it's not like this is the only member of Homo habilis that we have, and it isn't like this is the only member of genus Australopithecus that we have. We have lots of each of these guys to actually compare. They actually overlap slightly in brain case size too. Their tooth dimensions overlap, right? Their craniofacial dimensions overlap. So you might think to yourself, wow, maybe Wood and Collard actually have a point. Maybe this guy, Homo habilis, just should be Australopithecus habilis. And then it's like, okay, well, if you do that, then you're going to have to take this guy and all the characteristics that the next biggest hominin, which is going to be something like Homo rudolfensis, this guy here, and you're going to have to say, okay, well, then this is the first member of genus Homo. Except the problem is these two share a lot of different characteristics, as they do with the earliest members of Homo erectus, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, you're going to have the only member of genus Homo as Homo sapiens. It doesn't work, right? These guys overlap too much, too often. And I'm going to show you guys some figures from some papers here in a little bit to exemplify that a little bit more. But let's continue for now.
Let's continue. Let me drop you back down and I just want to highlight just a real quick comment here, because this might be my favorite of all of them. If C design proponentsists Why creationists?
So true.
So,
So
right?
true.
Why? How can they overlap if they're? Yeah. Okay.
It just can't be.
All right. So what I want to do here, I'm going to put Rupe back up here. Rupe. I'm going to put
Rupe.
Rupe back on screen, and we're going to go for about. I'm going to go from 7:35 to 9:24, and that's a nice little thing. And this is where he says something about finding true human bones, Erica, which I'm sure will make your face melt.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
I want to explain this. There's a lot of writing on this slide, but I think it's the most important slide I'm going to show you. The genus Homo can only be pushed back so far in time. It can't date older than its supposed origin, because you can't be born before your parents or before your ancestors. Does that make sense? This is why evolutionists must classify human-looking bones. I would say true human bones. They do find true human bones, and they date them to be 3 million years old and older, if you assume for the sake of argument their dates. And they would classify them as Australopithecus. You might say, well, why? If it looks human, why can't they just call it human or Homo sapiens? Because according to evolution, we did not yet exist. So because it's so old, they have to call it, well, this must belong to Australopithecus. And very conveniently, that happens to bolster their claim that Australopithecus walked upright like us. Because they'll find true human-looking bones, human knee joints, really show upright walking, but they'll classify it as Australopithecus. And that happens to fit their evolutionary claim of missing links that walked like us. So it's very deceptive. If Homo, the genus Homo, continues to be pushed back older and older, guess what happens? You are left with a very biblical-looking model of complete coexistence of humans and apes, Homo and Australopithecus, with no common evolutionary ancestors. Does that make sense?
No.
Here's the main point. We now have a criteria for falsification, don't we? The discovery of human fossils dating considerably older than 3 million years old would falsify the popular evolutionary ape-to-man model. Because again, you can't be born before your grandparents or ancestors.
So the argument here is if you have sufficiently old members of genus Homo, that qualifies as the proverbial Cambrian rabbit, and therefore falsifies all of human evolution, apparently.
So first of all, again, that wouldn't work.
That's not true.
The deepest, if that was true, that wouldn't work. The deepest that Rupe is comfortable saying, wow, Homo might even extend this far into the past, is 3 million years old. He says as much in this video. I don't know if we have it like on our timestamps, but he does say it. You need Homo older than 4.2 and really older than 4.4 million years of age. So you're basically pushing back the current oldest Homo that we have by an additional 1.5 million years. And there's a pretty big problem because the Homo that we have now that is the oldest, it looks virtually like Australopithecus. It isn't because, again, it carries some of those very earliest Homo characteristics that are going to unite it with later genus Homo that no Australopith has. But it is exceedingly primitive, which means if you take the members of Homo we have now and give them another 1.5 million years, you just have Australopithecus. There's no room.
Even if they diverged from those very earliest Australopiths, they would be so similar, it would be, if I understand you correctly, impossible to tell that divergent lineage that eventually became Homo. It would be based on just the fossil specimens we have from, let's say, 3.5 to 4.5 million years ago. It would be impossible to distinguish those morphologically from Australopiths. If he is correct, and Homo does go back that far, right? We would, in theory, have those specimens and be misclassifying them as Australopiths because they are so ancestral in their traits that they are indistinguishable from what you would say are true Australopiths, which is to say we have no reason to think that's happening.
Right. Now, I am not going to be shocked if I don't know. I guess I would be a little surprised because the oldest members of genus Homo that we have right now are, again, like I said, they're very, very primitive. They look very Australopithy, and we're going to read, again, some quotes about that here in a minute. But the argument is actually stupider than that because, let's take for a moment and consider how many Australopith remains we have. We have thousands of individual specimens belonging to hundreds of individuals, right, across the entire tenure of Australopithecus's life, right? It starts, the first members are 4.2, the last members are 1.9. So millions of years this genus has existed. Rupe wants us to believe that every single Australopith postcrania is actually human. Every single one. And you want to know why he requires every single one? Because all of them show mosaic features. They all belong to bipeds. The only ones that I think he would be comfortable trying to assign to Australopithecus would be like a curved finger bone. But even then, it couldn't be the thumb because their finger proportions are like ours, right? And he says that later. He's trying to, so I want you to consider this. Rupe believes that we have genuine crania from Australopithecus. He thinks Australopithecus is a real genus that we have skulls from. But everything from the neck down all across the continent of Africa has been misclassified and actually belongs to a human. The reason he feels comfortable saying this is because every single portion of Australopithecus' postcrania that has to do with bipedalism that informs it reveals a biped. And he can't have bipedal Australopithecus because that looks too much like an ape man. So it has to, by definition, be human. That's how he defines a human. He defines a human as having human characteristics, which means anything that approaches that just is a human. So under Rupe's definition, there can be no such thing as a transitional species. He defines it out of existence.
Bingo.
It's so stupid.
This is one of the places where I was like, even I understand why this is wrong, because he's saying everything, oh, they're true human bones here. No, they're not. You can look, I've learned some of this from you, Erica. We've found these specimens in articulation where we have like, oh, that's an arm, and that's a spine, and that's a leg, and they're together. And you can like measure the proportions of the bones. And I will tell you, because again, not my field, but I've learned enough of this, that like, even though they walk upright, like the proportions of the long bones in the arm to the long bones in the legs, like that ratio is not like a modern member of Homo sapiens. It's just not. It's different, but we're not talking about that stuff. Oh, no, these are actual human bones.
It's actually so unbelievable. It's unbelievable to the point. It's unbelievable to the point that one of those articulated specimens, MH1 and MH2, in contested bones, Rupe argues that Australopithecus sediba is a mixture of human and ape bones.
It's a mixture of the bones intermixed.
Of the bones themselves, despite the fact that some of the ape bones, they're in articulation with the human bones. They're literally in articulation with the human bones.
Fits of Rage nailed this one a couple minutes ago. Fits of Rage 23. Oh, are we getting to too transitional to be transitional? Yes, that's exactly where we're at. Yes, exactly. Yep, that's what we're doing.
I want to let him go for a little bit longer before we actually look at some of these remains, because what I'd like to do with everybody is just look at them. Like, let's just take a look for ourselves at these bones that he says are clearly human, fully human.
I've got two segments that are next here. So the first one is about a minute and a half, and it's where he says it's easy to tell them apart, and then he drops Kent Hovind, a 5-year-old, could do it. And so I want to do that little bit.
Yeah.
And then the next one is where he actually goes through some of the diagnostic criteria, and he's like, look at the hands, look at the feet, look at the spinal curve, right? And so then I think after we do that, then that's a good place to like, let's actually look at some. Does that sound good to you? Let's do it. All right, so first we're going to do about a minute and a half, and then we're just going to laugh at him because it's the stupidest thing imaginable.
Dan, do you think you'd be okay with like, let's do this next section, and then as we go through these characteristics,
then we can pause at each one.
I'm just going to say, okay, pause, let's look at them. Pause, let's look at them.
Perfect. We'll do that. Okay, so let's do about a minute. And someone pointed out this is AI, this stupid bunny fossil. Yeah, this is AI. They don't have bones in their ears.
Cringe.
Cringe. So let's go find some Precambrian rabbit fossils. This will be fun. Now, when evolutionists say quotes like this, let me read this. This is from an evolutionist. I want you to get into the mind of an evolutionist. How do they think when they look at these bones? Leslie Aiello says, no doubt about it, Australopithecines, meaning Australopithecus like Lucy and that type, are like apes. And the Homo group are like humans. As a Christian, I would say, well, duh. That sounds pretty simple, right? But if you asked her to say, well, what exactly do you mean like apes? She would say, well, not 100% like apes. We think they walked upright like modern humans and had a human skeleton from the neck down, looked very much like us. But I disagree with that. I think the reason why they say that is because they misclassify true human bones as Australopithecus, because otherwise it would falsify their theory. Am I making sense? I'm not going to go through all this, we don't have time. And this is not exhaustive. There are a number of features in ape and human bones that can distinguish them. You can pick up, say, a hip bone of a human and an ape, and you can tell them apart. Same thing with the hand bones, the foot bones. You can pick them up and say, okay, this one's an ape, this one's a human. And as Christians, as creationists, we need to understand what those features are, so when we go and study the fossils, we can tell them apart. And it's actually pretty easy. For a lot of these, even a 5-year-old could do it.
So I want to pause there.
Wonderful.
Because, folks, if you have not seen this table, let's just see how easy it is to classify these specimens as ape or human according to creationists.
Well, yeah, Dan, because what Rupe just said was, as creationists, we should be able to tell the difference. Yeah. And even a 5-year-old could do it.
A 5-year-old could do it, which
so
let's just appreciate.
Creationists aren't dumber than 5-year-olds. So
no,
we should
they should be able to do it.
They should be able to do it. Yeah, they should be able to do it.
So he should, first of all, let's just appreciate that he stole that line from Kent Hovind. Let's just all appreciate that. Like, this is a man who has ingested lots of Kent Hovind in his life, to the point where he's quoting him in his own creationist talks. Let's just appreciate that. But now, let's look at a table of some famous specimens and see how easy it is for creationists to classify them as either ape or human. And because even a 5-year-old could do it, obviously all of the creationists are going to agree on whether each
wait. Shoot.
Hang on a minute. Hang on.
Shoot.
Oh,
dang it.
Menton, Bowden, Baker, Gish, more Gish. Oh, man, some of them they don't agree at all, Eric. I thought it was easy.
Man, you know what's really funny about this is that, so you've got KNM-ER 1813 up there and then KNM-ER 1470. You'll be pleased to know that that's our first member. Oh, I've got Naledi there. That's our first member of genus Homo habilis.
That's which one was that one? That was ER.
This is our oldest. This is 1813. KNM
got it up here. Yeah.
510 cc's, supposedly. That's not quite accurate. And then you've got KNM-ER 1470. These two overlap in time, and some people even argue that they're dimorphic members of the same species due to their overlap in anatomy. I disagree with that, by the way.
Well, Dwayne Gish says they're different genera, so.
Yeah, exactly. So some people, we've got a 50-50 split for Rudolfensis. Half of them say this is human, half of them say this is ape. Most of them say that habilis is just an ape, right? Which is really funny because Rupe just got done telling us that if it's a member of genus Homo, it's a human.
It's fully human.
But clearly, obviously, a 5-year-old can tell the difference. Well, then how come all these old creationists got it wrong?
Why can't they tell the difference?
That's so strange.
It's weird.
Whatever, especially because, remember, according to these guys, if Rupe is right, then this is human and this is not. Right? Australopithecus is clearly an ape and habilis is clearly a human. 5-year-olds could tell the difference.
Yeah.
No, that's not how this works. And as we're going to see later, once you do the incredible thing, Dan, which is instead of just eyeballing it, you actually take measurements and run statistics. This actually becomes clearer in some ways and less clear in others, because it's evolution. These things are overlapping with one another as they change over time. It's hard to do.
Yeah. By the way, if anybody wants this figure, just email me, creationmythschannel@gmail.com, and I will send it to you so you can have it and break it out anytime a creationist says anything like it's clearly fully ape, or it's clearly fully human, or that's just a chimpanzee, or whatever.
Hold on. Side note, keep this up.
Keeping it up.
You see that one in the middle, Peking Man, 914 cc's to 500 or to 1225.
Yeah.
That's this guy. That's Homo erectus. Now, Dan, refresh my memory. But didn't Homo erectus doesn't Rupe say something to the tune later of Homo erectus, which every creationist would agree is just a human?
Yes,
he says that verbatim.
And
that's
I don't think that's
though.
the case, because I've got 3 out of 7 groups here saying Homo erectus is an ape, and 4 out of 7 saying it's a human. Sorry, my cursor was on the wrong screen. There you go, right there.
and it's also this isn't even this is a specific specimen, right? Like this is the same specimen that we're looking at here. They can't tell the difference, and the reason they can't tell the difference is because it's actually very difficult. A 5-year-old couldn't tell the difference between these guys because they're all related and closely related at that. That's the reason, right? Anyways, let's continue.
All right, let's. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to put the other put the video back up. And at this one, Erica, just tell me when to stop, and you can enlighten us.
Oh, wait. Before you do that, someone in the comments, while we're at it, asked who Leslie Ayello is. She is she's in biological anthropology. She's pretty famous. And what's really funny is that when I Googled the quote that they showed from this moments ago on that screen, the screen grab that Rupe had up, the first result was actually that same quote in a Discovery Institute article.
Shocking.
And if you go to the bottom, Discovery Institute will cite where they got it from, which Rupe does not do. Which leads me to believe that he got the quote from the DI article, not the original source. Anyways, just thought that was fun detail.
I bet that's the case. All right. Should we go through when he does like thumbs, big toes, flexible feet. He does,
Let's go through them one by one.
And this is like the actual like meat of this talk here, because he says that each of these things is the proverbial Cambrian rabbit, right? That this is the out-of-place fossil that proves that the evolutionist narrative is wrong. So
he is saying that every single one of these bones that we're about to go over that supposedly belongs to Australopithecus, but only if it's postcranial or for the neck down,
doesn't count.
It's actually human.
Count. Yeah.
It's human. He thinks it is human. Homo sapiens, by the way. Now, I want to remind everybody, Rupe thinks that Homo sapiens comprises everything in genus Homo. That is a brain case size range from about 546 cc's, less than Australopithecus in some of our Dmanisi specimens. He thinks that's human, and he also thinks that the 1700 plus, more than 3 times the amount, or approximately 3 times the size of the smallest. So you've got like a bigger range of brain case sizes in humans than you would allow for in any other species ever. Like mammal, at least. So
we're special.
Yeah, it does not make any sense, but that's fine.
We're special. All right.
Okay.
We're going to do this. You tell me when to stop.
Yep.
It's that intuitive. Let me give you a few examples. Here's the chimpanzee hand compared to the human hand. Notice humans have a long thumb relative to the other digits. You see that? That allows us to do pad to pad or tip to tip precision gripping. So we can manipulate tools and things like that. Apes can't do that. That is actually a diagnostic feature that is only found in humans. The feet, everybody knows.
Let's do hands first.
Let's do hands.
All right, hold on. Let me get my slideshow here going. We can start with our handerinis here, if I can find it. Fun fact, one of my buddies and lab mates was actually a hand expert. She studied the first metacarpal, so that's actually the thumb. And she could tell you more than anybody that the hands were actually incredibly modern for these guys.
He also, while you're pulling this up, I'll just point out the little trick that he just did, and I hope everyone else noticed the little trick that he just did. And if you didn't, take notes. We've been talking about Australopiths versus Homo and how to distinguish them, and he's saying that the Australopiths, they have these human characters to the point where they're actual Homo sapiens bones being misclassified as Australopiths, right? But now, the comparison he's doing here is not within the hominins. He's talking modern humans versus modern chimps. That's not the same thing we've just been talking about up to this point. We've been dealing with just within the very recent hominins so far, but now we're making all these comparisons to a completely different, much more divergent group. And I just want to make sure everyone sees the bait and switch that he's pulling here. He does it with feet. He does it with hands. He's going to do it with the pelvis. He shows all this human chimp, human chimp, human chimp. That's not the relevant comparison. It's all dishonest hackery. What you need to be showing is the distinction between all of these other ape species that he claims are actually apes and humans, and he's not doing that here. And I just want to make sure everyone catches that bait and switch that he does.
All right, almost done here. I think it's especially funny that when he's talking about this, he mentions explicitly that precision grip because, Dan, there was actually a paper that came out just this past week. We finally have a hand from Paranthropus. So for all this time, we'd not had a hand from Paranthropus, right? Like this big, close relative of Australopithecus. And it is very interesting because it does not look very much like a human hand at first glance. But it has. Can you see that?
I got you. Let me take this down and put that up. Here you go.
So what you can see there, that's the Paranthropus hand that was published. You'll notice that the fingers are just like super fat, right? Like they're really, really, really robust. But what's really cool, they're really big fingers. What's really cool is that they have that digit ratio that he was just talking about of a human.
Right.
So they have the robusticity of a gorilla, actually, is the comparison that is specifically made, but they have the precision grip of a human. Here's a comparison of some other
So it's like me wearing winter gloves. It's like wearing winter gloves. It's,
yeah, exactly. So if you look at a chimpanzee's hand, and I wish I could see this up close. Maybe we'll just check in and it will let us. So we can see it up close and personal. Evolution of the hominin hand. There we go. Can you see that okay?
It didn't change from what you were just doing. I still see the Google images.
Whoops. Okay, hold on. Maybe I need to... Is there an easy way to shift tabs, do you think?
Not that I know of. If you shared a tab, then no.
Okay, let me share those. Oh, maybe I should just share...
What if I share the window and then you can shift the tabs?
Yeah, that might be the move. Okay, share screen. Jeez Louise. Okay, Chrome tab. Share window.
No, window. Do window.
Yeah. Let's do this one. Share.
There it is.
All right. Can you see this?
There you are. Yeah,
so,
there it is.
Like, I just want everybody to appreciate the difference here. So here's Ardipithecus ramidus. You can see these really long fingers here. This is an early hominin from about 4.4 million years ago, before any Australopith ever existed. Then we have Australopithecus afarensis. That's Lucy's hand. Huh, that looks a lot like Homo sapiens down here, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Then we have Australopithecus africanus. Wow, same thing. There's some pizzas missing, but by and large, that still looks pretty sapiens-y. That's a very long thumb. Humans have long thumbs compared to our fingers. Well, now wait a second. There's Australopithecus sediba, same situation. Habilis, same situation. Naledi, same situation. So clearly all of these hominins have a more similar condition to humans than they do to the chimpanzee, which is here highlighted by my cursor, the gorilla, now highlighted by my cursor again, or the orangutan, highlighted by my cursor. Rupe wants you to believe that despite all of the other remains that we have from these hominins, all of these are actually, they just belong to Homo sapiens. So you're hearing that and you're like, that's
the skulls
really
that we saw before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He believes
Homo sapiens.
He believes everything is Homo sapiens, all of it. And also these hands that you're looking at, all these hands belong to Homo sapiens too. Right? None of these actually belong to Australopithecus because all of them have a precision grip besides these apes. So he's saying that all of these are Homo sapiens. Here's a problem. Here's our Paranthropus hand here. This has, again, the robusticity of a gorilla. It's huge, but it has the human hand proportions. And that's because Paranthropus independently re-evolved that robusticity, but it maintained the hominin ability to have a precision grip. Why might a hominin have an ability to or maintain the ability to have a precision grip? Because hominins have been using tools since Australopithecus, which was the genus that gave rise to this guy that you can see here, Paranthropus, and also our genus Homo. The problem gets even stupider and even bigger than that, because MH1 and MH2, two hominins that are a part of the Australopithecus group, right, were found with many of their bits in articulation. So you can see this now, Dan, right? Two skeletons standing side by side.
Yep.
Okay, so this is
we got
MH1.
the head. Great.
Yeah, we got the head, right? So we got MH1 here and then MH2. Now, all of these are found together, and the bits that are rubbed like right up next to each other were found in articulation.
Great.
So hopefully you can see that we've got the head and articulation with some of the cervical stuff. Rupe would have you believe that this head that was found with all of these other bones That this is just a mixture of two
different
genera.
thing. It's a different species. Yeah, he says that explicitly later, that the heads, we have all the postcranial stuff, he says that's all the same, but the heads that we attach to them are wrong. Even though we have found fragments of skulls and highly intact skulls in articulation with like shoulder stuff and spines and all the rest. And then you could, like a puzzle, you could daisy chain it all together.
So I've got a picture. I've got a picture for you about that too in just a second. I just want you guys to remember that the dark brown, that's the stuff that's the fossil material, right? The light brown is absent, the dark brown is fossil material. So we have the entire right arm of MH2 here, including the hand. The arm stuff that you can see, which is found in articulation with that hand, that arm stuff is Australopith ape-like proportion.
And it has the shoulder, it has the clavicle, it has, is there a scapula in there? It has some vertebrae, it looks like, and it has the lower jaw.
And
all together.
I hope you guys will appreciate hearing this as well, that in Christopher Rupe, our speakers here's book, Contested Bones, he talks about these specimens you can see on your screen. And he actually considers that these specimens, as we said, are a mixture of ape and human bones. And the upper limbs, which is the humerus, scapula, radius, and ulna, he says that those belong to an ape. But actually the hand, which is on the next page, belongs to a human. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind.
So we can't even keep straight which bones are from which species when we're mixing two species together. He's inconsistent over time with that.
Nope. Okay. And the hip bone is human, right? Hopefully you can see he classifies the hip bone as human because the pelvis is indeed very human-like.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Yeah, we'll see that in a minute.
But when you look at the articulation here, that pelvis has an articulation with the lumbar vertebrae, and the lumbar vertebrae here, are Australopith, right? Like they're primitive lumbar vertebra. So that's a problem too. But Dan, I want to show you one last thing before we move on to the next section that has to do specifically with the hand. So let me switch over here. So
by the way, folks, I hope you're comfortable. We are going to be looking at bones until midnight my time.
I know. We're not. I'm going to speed up, actually.
There are sections that I have notes where you could just say like there's a minute and a half section where the only notable thing is he says that a Homo erectus is fully human, and we don't need to watch him say that. He just says it, and it's dumb.
We don't care about that. Yeah. We don't care about that at all. Here, Dan, I have shared screen again.
Oh, yep, I got you.
You guys see this picture here? This is beautiful, right? These are in situ photos, right? So you can see that the hand and arm here are literally in one chunk. There's the humerus, there's the radius and the ulna highlighted by my cursor, and then the fist is still clenched as it was in life, right? This is sick. Cool. Here it is, the other arm up here, or the other arm down here with the scapula, radius, and ulna down here again, connected to the humerus up top. And then hopefully you can see here is Clark holding the head or the cranium up next to himself. You can see how small it is because Australopiths were pretty little. And then here's the whole skeleton. So what I want you guys to appreciate is that the bones here are found in articulation. You know what specimen this is, Dan? This is STW 573. It's over 95% complete.
Look at that.
And it has an Australopith head, and then that whole postcrania that Rupe just got done telling us belongs to just a human in articulation with an Australopithecus head.
Amazing.
What do you do with this, Dan?
You say, Chris, I think you're lying to me.
Precisely.
You're saying that neck down Homo sapiens, but the skulls that we're attaching to that Homo sapiens skeleton from over 3 million years ago in your telling, right, some of these specimens, the skulls that we say go with the rest of those skeletons, those are clearly ape skulls, and they don't actually go with the rest of those skeletons, and scientists are either too dumb or too dishonest to acknowledge that that is the case, right? That's what he's saying, even though, as I understand it, based on the literal specimens you're showing us, we are finding the skulls that are clearly not Homo sapien skulls in articulation with the much of the rest of the skeleton that has very Homo sapiens-like derived traits.
Yes, and the reason is because they're Homo sapiens-like because they're bipedal. And the reason
right.
why it seems derived is because hominins evolved bipedalism before big brains, before small jaws, before small teeth, all that stuff, right?
Yes.
But critically, they maintain primitive aspects to them. So Rupe will say that in Contested Bones. He'll talk about Lucy's curved phalanges. He'll talk about the long arms that Australopiths have.
Right.
But here, all the postcrania is actually human. And that's because if you dig into this, it starts to sound really stupid. Now,
Yeah.
I have to tell you, too, the specimen you can see on screen, it's not in here. It's not in Contested
Shocking.
Bones.
Shocking. That
All
is
right,
a
next.
shocking development. All right, what else we got here? Here we go.
Foot looks kind of like a hand. And humans don't have that, as convenient as that would be. I have kids. I sure wish I could grab with 2 extra limbs. So, and I have another one on the way, so need another.
Oh, wow.
Here we have, look at the, so do I have to say it? Look at the,
I just want to literally nobody laughed at the second half of that joke. And I've been there, but you got to lean into it.
You gotta
it.
embrace it.
You gotta like make the joke knowing it's gonna bomb, and then that's the joke. You gotta like, right.
You cannot be
Like-
you cannot be doing it this way. Like
No, you
the crowd smells weakness.
If you're gonna perform, you gotta perform. You gotta, look. I'm an older millennial, and I get my students to laugh, but half the jokes are some variant of look how old I am, right? Right.
Embrace the cringe.
That's the joke. Embrace the cringe. That's what you got to do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got it.
hallux. This is called a hallux or hallux, sorry. The hallux is like a thumb, and it's on the ape foot. Humans don't have that. Hopefully most of you don't have that. That would be scary. So very distinct, very obvious. A less obvious difference is apes can actually bend their foot right in the middle of their foot. It's called a mid-tarsal break or a flexible midfoot. If you're walking up to a tree trunk, think about it. That would be helpful if you just grab the tree trunk, you put your feet against it, and your foot can bend. That'll help you to walk up the tree. No humans, unless they break their foot, humans don't have that feature. The S-shaped spine. We have.
All right, sharing again. Hold
Do
on.
it.
Same. Actually, just share the same thing. It's
I'll
still
share
same.
this
same
right
window.
here. Boom.
So first of all, he's talking about the mid-tarsal break, right? Human feet are pretty flexible. They're more rigid than other apes, but they're still pretty flexible. And also apes can force their foot to be somewhat rigid. They're awkward when they do it, but this is something of degree. This isn't a feature that's like present absent. It's a feature that exists in all of us and varies by degree. Now, what you guys can see on your screen right now is from Stern and Sussman, 1983. It's a famous article that argues that Lucy's species, Australopithecus afarensis, while it walked upright, it didn't walk upright exactly like humans did. So what you can see here on the left is the proximal phalangeal curvature. So this is the toe curvatures. So the second toe all the way to the pinky, not including the big toe. And we're looking at the proximal portion, right? So the portion closer to the heel of the foot. And we're looking at toe 2, toe 3, toe 4, and toe 5. And we're comparing AL333, which is Australopithecus, to humans, gorillas, chimps, and bonobos. Humans obviously have this huge range for pretty much all of them. And what you will see consistently is that Australopithecus sometimes maps closer to humans and sometimes maps closer to the other apes in the curvature of its toes. Compare that to the meeting of these metatarsals to the tarsals, or the ankle bones over here, where Australopithecus, the same specimen, AL333, maps more with humans, right? So the foot itself is a mosaic, right? We're looking at a mixture of characteristics that sometimes align it more with other apes and sometimes align it more with humans.
Yeah, I just want to highlight. I just want to highlight before we go any further here. So again, too transitional to be transition. Take 2. That's exactly what's going on here. And if I understand you correctly, within the foot, you have certain bones that have a more derived character state, and you have certain bones that have the more ancestral state. Like the bones themselves are going to be a mix of ancestral and derived character states in a single specimen.
That's exactly right. Dan.
Okay, cool.
So these are
I am following. Great.
Bones. Yeah, so these are your toe bones. So these are the bones of the foot, like your digits, the sort of fleshy portion of your foot. So not your exposed little toes, but actually the metatarsals themselves. And so it's showing you that the curvature of those toes, like how those toes curve, is more ape-like. but that the proximal portion or the part of that toe bone that articulates with the bones of your ankle, that's more human-like, which is what you would expect if you're going to become a biped. The area that's going to become rigid first is going to be the ankle, as compared to stability.
That's, the ankle has to stabilize. Yeah.
Right. So, and that's what we see, right?
Well, to be fair, the ankle sucks at its job, but that's a whole other thing. The ankle is stupid and dumb, and it's one of the best pieces of evidence for evolution that the ankle sucks at its job because it's adapted from a grasping wrist structure. But that's
for sure something that's meant to be flexible and mobile, but now needs to be adapted for stability.
Bearing weight,
I'll add too that here's a comparison of Homo sapiens on the far right here. On the far left, we have OH8, which is Homo habilis. That's this guy right here, who we already talked about, who Rupe thinks is human and every other
fully human. Look at that skull. Clearly a person. Clearly a person. You can see it's got a flat face.
It's got a flat and a huge brain, of course.
And no brow ridges or anything. It's very human.
Yeah, you have tiny teeth, of course. And in the middle of these two guys, you have STW573. That's this fully complete skeleton again. So it's got this inline big toe, right? This thing, again, Rupe is telling you that this fossil in the middle is fully human. Why is it attached to this fucker right here? Like, what's going on here, Dan? Here it is.
We put a quarter in the swear jar for the stream. That's it. We put the quarter in the swear jar. We're good for the stream.
Sorry. All right, I'm ready for the next one. The point is that the foot...
Oh, this is so dumb. Every one of these
clearly bipedal, but it's a mosaic in and of itself.
Every one of these is Rupe is basically, and I'll say this again at the end of the section, but basically everything in this section is Rupe is going, look, here's your Precambrian rabbit. And then we're going, okay, but look, here it is attached to the ancestral bones. It's attached to something that is clearly not Homo sapiens.
Yeah. Over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's all of these criteria are wrong because we find them literally attached in situ to things that are clearly ape-like, as a creationist would say. This is so dumb.
When in reality,
this is so dumb.
This is why they don't talk about the fossils themselves.
Yeah.
Right. This is why they don't do it. They can't sit down and look at these figures and look at these measurements and how they actually map in a comparative sample.
Earlier today, as we were talking back and forth, kind of laying out how we're going to approach this, and I was saying I rewatched it and took notes and took timestamps, and it's so much dumber than I realized the first time I was more casually listening to it. And now on the third time through, it's so much worse than I realized.
It's so bad. I want everybody out there to hear me when I say this. When I told Donnie Deals about this, when I had this same conversation with Donnie Deals, Donnie abandoned Rupe's hypothesis. Donnie does not think Lucy's a pygmy human. He has come over to the enlightened, it's just a bipedal hominin that is unrelated to humans bandwagon. Thank goodness. He's taken the Paleologos position at long last.
All right. Let's see what other Cambrian rabbits we're going to find
Lumbar
here.
lordosis.
Oh, the spine, of course.
It supports us during upright walking. That is essential for upright walking. Apes have more of a C-shaped, so they can hold their weight up against gravity when they're knuckle walking. That's another distinctive feature.
Pause. This is quick. That's not the reason why they have a C-shaped spine.
No.
The human spine is shaped the way that it is because of that, yes, but that's not why other apes have C-shaped spines. Because, Dan, gibbons don't knuckle walk and neither do orangutans, and they have C-shaped spines.
Knuckle walking is derived. If every time anyone hears knuckle walking, you should replace that in your head in terms of where that falls in the evolutionary trajectory. Replace knuckle walking in your head with upright posture. It is a derived trait for the lineages that do it, in the same way that upright posture is a derived trait for us. So you cannot attribute that spine shape. Even this was one of the ones, Erica, I knew this one. I was so proud of myself. You cannot attribute that spine shape because it's not to knuckle walking, because the spine shape predates knuckle walking by I don't even know how many years. Millions?
So,
I don't know, but a lot.
So, you know what's so funny about this too is that it's like, so the spine, you can use aspects of the spine and that S shape and the lumbar trapping and lumbar lordosis. You can use all of that to clock a biped. That's true. The problem is, you know those hominin skeletons that I keep showing you that are clearly ape-like?
Yeah.
They have the human configuration,
Oh,
the trapping, the S-shaped spine, and humans and chimps differ in, we have like our spread for thoracic and lumbar vertebrae. They look like us. The osteopods look like us. But it's in this ape body, and it's attached to an ape rib cage. Which, Dan, that's another difference between.
They don't talk to rib cages.
They don't. So it's like, anyways, that's all I have for this.
How much did Rupe talk about the rib cages in this video? None.
Yeah,
There's no mention of the rib cages, even though they're very different. And we have lots of Australopith rib cages, and that's another one that I was like, I talked about that in my class, and he didn't talk about it at all. That's kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad. You told me it's so bad.
It's so bad. We're not even to the stupidest part yet.
Oh, God.
Femur, the large leg bone that connects from your hip to your knee joint, right? That is positioned at an angle because we have wider hips, and it puts allows us to walk upright in a way that apes have to almost go like more of a side-to-side waddle. And so their carrying angle, as it's called, or bicondylar angle, is more like 0 degrees. It's straight up and down. That, in combination with other features, I think can be diagnostic of human or ape. Now, moving ahead quickly, the hip as well, as I mentioned. Humans have a broad, bowl-shaped hip to hold the organs. We have a wider sacrum, more heart-shaped. Apes have a very elongated sacrum, and it looks very different. Okay, those are just a few. There's a lot more.
Okay, so now we're changing gears a little bit here.
We're gonna hit this rapid fire. Yes, a valgus knee is associated with bipedalism, but it's also associated with an upright posture, which is why it varies within apes as well. I want to show you a really, really cool picture. Sharing my screen. Shite. Why does it do this sometimes? My stupid StreamYards is.
StreamYard. Don't bite the hand that feeds, right? But StreamYard.
True. And also, if I may complain for a moment, StreamYard has recently started charging for stuff that used to be free, or maybe
shocking development.
I know, right? Or maybe they had been doing that, and I've only just now like noticed that they're doing it. But it's really pissing me off. Okay, let me find this picture.
That's why I've been working on doing streams directly with OBS.
Have you been working with that?
I've been working on it. I've done a couple dummy ones that are private just to like see if I can get it to work, and I'm working on it.
That's smart to do it.
I'm working on it and practicing before I do it for real.
Femur. Let's see if we can get this picture. Oh shoot! I know I have this somewhere. It should be in my thing, but I don't think that it is. Wait, is this it? This might be it. Hold on, Dan. Hold on. Please be what I'm looking for. Where's the picture? Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna share. Anyways, we'll talk about valgus knee stuff. Window, Chrome. Okay. So the valgus knee for Australopiths, it does come in at this angle, and like that's fine. Rupe would have you believe that every single femur that we have, including our beloved STW 573, who we've already talked about a zillion times. Remember this guy with all the articulation? This thing's femur is actually just a human. It doesn't matter that it fits into the sockets of the hip. It doesn't matter that it's found in one piece. That's actually just a human. Same thing with MH1 and MH2. This thing that is associated, again, exclusively with other Australopithecine remains. This thing is actually it belongs to a human. It's fine. It doesn't matter. And, of course, the femur's bicondylar angle, that valgus nature, varies based off of the species in question. It's more valgus in some apes than it is in others. And it also, Dan, this is really interesting, and this was the picture I was looking for, but I couldn't find it, so I'm sure it's somewhere hidden away in my saved photos. But chimpanzees that live in the savannas have a more valgus knee than chimpanzees that live in the forest because they're forced to walk upright more often.
Of course. Because with the grasslands, you got to be able to,
Exactly. So that's really cool. It's like, I don't know. It's associated with bipedalism and upright posture, but it's not a human characteristic exclusively. And I think it's silly to try to make it seem that way. Here's a fun picture to show you like kind of what that is. This is a website called eLucy. Basically what it is it shows you the difference between Lucy, a human, and a chimpanzee for all of the bones that we have associated with Lucy.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, it's really really nice. You get like all of the different views. So this is dorsal or posterior, so from behind. Lateral, this is from the outer side. Medial, from the middle side. Proximal, this is
Oh,
like
look at
the
that.
top portion of the
Wow.
femur. And then you have the anterior or front portion. So what you can see here is Lucy's like femur. Of course, it has that valgus knee that a human has, and like a chimpanzee over here is upright. The distal portion looks more human-like, I would argue, than chimpanzee-like. Like it's not hard to say that we're looking at something that is more human-like in general. And then what we're going to talk about next is the pelvis, which let's use these. So this is a human pelvis. Can you see this, Dan? This 3D model?
That's moving. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a human pelvis. The human pelvis is composed of the ilium, the ischium, and the pubis on either side, and then they fuse with the sacrum, which is this portion in the middle that makes up the inferior portion of your spinal cord, or of your spinal column, excuse me. That's what a human pelvis looks like: short, stout ilia. A chimpanzee pelvis, on the other hand, has really tall, skinny ilia and really tall ischia. And that sacrum has 5 foramina, or holes, as well as having this weird sort of rhomboidal shape compared to the heart shape that you see in a human, with these 4 sacral foramina on either side. This is Lucy's pelvis. So Lucy's pelvis is reflected here. The actual preservation includes the entire sacrum and then one side. So they've taken the side that they have.
Yeah.
And just reflected it down the midline.
Well, we could do, you know what they should do? We could just give another argument to creationists to make this work. We could do a Jason Lyle, but for bones instead of the speed of light, and just say you can't reflect it. It's asymmetrical.
Yeah, it's anisotropic.
It's only, right, it's only one, the pelvis only works in one direction. You can't just assume that it's,
Right, exactly.
It's a deep cut, sorry, folks.
No. It's yeah, that is actually a deep cut. Lucy's pelvis is obviously that of a biped, right? It has that short, stout ilia, a short, stout ischium, and it has this human number of foramina, so 4 on either side, just like we would expect. But the thing is, it's not identical to a human pelvis, right? The human pelvis is still extremely derived in its own direction as compared to Lucy. Yeah. Lucy has these ilial flares off to the side that are thought to have been a way for her to overcome other, as of yet, unevolved or more primitive characteristics, like having shorter legs, having a less valgus knee slightly than a human, things of that nature. So it's like the pelvis is definitely that of a biped, but we run into the same problem where it's like, what are we supposed to do with this? What are we supposed to do with STW 573? What are we supposed to do with this? Right, where we have these pelvises.
We just attached the wrong skulls. Obviously, we just attached the wrong skulls, and oftentimes the wrong rib cage. To be fair, it's the wrong skulls and the wrong rib cage.
Wrong skulls, wrong rib cage. Classic, right?
And we mixed and matched the arms and the legs because like the femurs are too short and the humerus is too long, and it's like, well, you got to put the specimens together correctly, but like they're all there. You just got to figure out which ones go which. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for real.
They're modern humans. They're Homo sapiens. It's fine.
No problem. It's literally no problem. It's all just modern humans. While I've got everybody here, since this is the last of the anatomy comparisons that we're going to do, I just wanted to show that like we have a more chimp-like scapula for Australopithecus as compared to humans. When we look at the humerus, which is the upper arm bone, same thing. It's more chimp-like than it is human-like. It has torsion or like a twist to it that is more reminiscent of chimps as compared to humans. But the intermembral index itself is considered intermediate between humans and chimps.
All right, question for you. Hang on. You said a word that I want to make sure. You said, say that again, the intermembral index. What was that?
Yeah.
Okay, intermembral index. So for everybody watching who doesn't know what that means, to be clear, I know what that means. But for everybody watching who doesn't know what that means, can you explain what that means for everybody watching? This is a joke, folks. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is. And you should be okay admitting when you don't know something and ask.
Of course. The intermembral index is just a means by which we quantify the ratio of arm to leg length.
Thank you.
So what you do is you measure the humerus.
Okay, now I put the word together. It makes sense. Got it.
There you go. You measure the humerus, measure the radius, and then divide that by the femur and the tibia, and then multiply that times 100, and you're going to get a number. If it's close to 100, then arms and legs are roughly equal length. If it's over 100, like 122 plus, then arms are way longer than legs. And if it's like sub 90,
and that's like a more ape thing, is having the long arms, short legs, and having it below 100, where the legs are longer than the arms, that's more of a human
Yes.
thing. Yeah, okay.
Exactly, because we're striding bipeds. And it's not that humans have short arms, it's just we've got really long
Just
legs.
proportionally, our legs have gotten a lot longer relative to the rest of our body. Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So I want to like shout this out because we don't have time to go over like literally everything. But
That's okay
even
because we're going to
here-
skip like 10 minutes because we just covered like the next 10 minutes. So it's really easy.
Yeah, I mean, and here I'll stop sharing here. What he's about to argue is that, and there's a lot obviously that I'm skipping, but what he's about to argue is that Lucy was discovered in 1975, and like thereabouts, right? Lucy and the first family were discovered in 1975, and he's like, yeah, Donald Johanson and his team found all of these bones, and they found Lucy, and then they found originally Donald Johanson was like, yeah, it looks like we've got the contemporaneity of two genera here, but then he backed off and he said, actually, it's all just Australopithecus. And I have a wonderful book here by Ian Tattersall called The Fossil Trail, which I've used a lot. It's basically like the history of paleoanthropology when it was written, which was up to like 2006 at the time. You can tell because Ian Tattersall looks so young in his picture, where he talks about exactly this. And
little catching strays there on Ian Tatters.
okay, well, he looks so like he does look so young. I'm sorry, Ian Tattersall. I'm sorry, Ian Tattersall. He's gonna go over exactly why that happened, and I don't know. Are we gonna listen to?
No. So what we're gonna do is we're up to 13:20. So the next 5 minutes are exactly what you described of him saying, oh, we've got Lucy and we've got this first family group of specimens, and look, they have all the Cambrian rabbit traits that I just described. We have just explained, really, Erica has just explained why those things are not what Christopher Rupe is representing. They are not indicative of Homo sapiens. They are found together with ancestral traits that are indicative of Australopiths and earlier apes. So we don't need to listen to Chris Rupe go through this stuff. We're good. And then the next segment after that, it's about a minute and a half, and the only note I took from that is just 4-word quote, Erectus is fully human, was the only relevant part in that next like minute and a half there when he says Homo erectus is fully human. And I know that that's not the case. And I, again, am a dum-dum when it comes to bones.
I find that such a frustrating statement because it shows just how little he knows or cares about.
Cares. He wrote a book. He cares.
Right. About the diversity of these specimens, like what they're actually like, how they actually overlap.
Well, let me put it this way. Earlier, when you put up those two skulls and like this one is Homo, this one is early Homo, and this one is late Australopith, and I was like, I couldn't tell them apart. If you put an Erectus skeleton or skull next to a Homo sapien skeleton or skull, I could 100% tell them apart.
For sure.
100%.
For sure you could. Absolutely. A 5-year-old could do it,
So
Dan.
why can't Christopher Rupe?
Yeah, he because he can, right?
Right.
Because he can do it, and he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
What I think we should do then is, would you be cool if I read this passage, like this short paragraph?
Please.
And
while you read it, I'm gonna pull up the video, I'm gonna mute it, and I'm gonna get us up to about the 20-minute mark because that's where he does the neck down, the head attached conspiracy thing.
Perfect.
And I think we should show that part. So
all right.
Here, it's going to play out loud. Oh, actually, I can mute it now. Here you go. Go ahead. It's going to be muted, and I'll do what I need to do.
So Rupe is complaining about Hadar, the location here. And like we said, he originally talks about how it's like, oh, first it was just Australopithecus, and then it turns out, or first it was Homo and Australopithecus, and then they pushed it all into Australopithecus because they couldn't have them living side by side. Ian Tattersall says, a year after the initial announcement of the 3 million-year-old hominin from Hadar, then Lucy provided clinching evidence, to show that human precursors had indeed been walking upright on their hind legs at a remote point in time. But what was Lucy? What species did she and the other Hadar fossils represent? Just before finding Lucy, Johansen had been visited in the field by Richard Leakey and other members of the Cubifora group. With modestly proportioned bony parts and a rather Homo-like balance in size between the incisor and molar teeth, the jaws that had already been found clearly did not belong to Paranthropus boisei, with its massive jawbones, tiny incisors, massive chewing teeth, etc. So Leakey, fresh from his discovery of KNM ER 1470, which, if you will recall, is this guy here, an early member of genus Homo, quickly and predictably concluded they must belong to an early species of Homo. That's the reason it was initially assigned to Homo, because we had just discovered an early member of genus Homo, and prior to Australopithecus afarensis, all we had was like Africanus. Like, we did not have an Australopith in Eastern Africa. So it seemed reasonable to say, well, the teeth look really similar to Homo, so it probably belongs to Homo. That's the reason why initially the two genera were proposed there. But if you guys will recall, early members of genus Homo and late members of Australopithecus are really, really similar, especially in their teeth. So this is understandable why he ended up doing that. By his own admission, Johansen himself was already toying with this conclusion. On the other hand, it was clearly meaningless to consider diminutive and tiny-brained Lucy as a member of our own genus. Thus, in their preliminary description in Nature in 1973 and in 1974, the Hadar hominids, Johansen and Taib concluded that 2 or 3 species were represented among them: a primitive form of Homo and something else. And so they go on to elaborate on like why that was and what ended up causing them to change their minds. But we've kind of already talked about this. But of course, that's not how Rupe represents it. Rupe represents it like a conspiracy. Like, it's like, oh, they realized that they were going to have contemporaneous hominins like Homo and Australopithecus. Better go ahead and make sure that we lie and say that they're all one thing, which is annoying to me. And I also, Dan, I want to share one more thing here that I know you guys are dying about it. Just in case anybody gets the wrong idea, this is a figure from Crompton et al. 2024 that looks at geometric morphometrics via a canonical variate analysis of pelvic shape. And what I want you guys to appreciate is that here are all of our gorillas in green, and then we have chimpanzees and orangutans in pink and purple. And then down here we have our gibbons and siamangs in in yellow and in tan. And then in orange over here is humans. These multicolored triangles and stars are Ardipithecus and Australopiths, right? They're not grouping perfectly with the humans. So they're not humans. They look a hell of a lot like humans, right? Like, you look at them and you're like, wow, that's really similar. But they're not. They group outside of our variation. So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear and get that in the bud.
It's so funny how when you talk about this stuff, unfortunately for these older specimens, we don't have the genomes. We don't have any DNA that we've isolated and can sequence here. But it's so funny, the way you describe that is exactly the way you would talk about genomic comparisons between Homo sapiens, Homo neanderthalensis, Denisovans, right? Where we're saying, oh, are they part of us? Are they part of... No, you look at them, they are outside of us. They're a sister clade, not within our range of variation that we find. And it's really cool to see that within the fossil evidence going further back than that, because again, we don't have DNA that far back, but which, if they all existed at the same time, we should have the DNA, but whatever. Side note. But it follows the same pattern of you have a range of variation within Homo sapiens, and then you have the closely related groups that are very similar, but outside of that range. And that is a consistent pattern. Yeah. It's very cool to see that visually.
It's exactly what you would expect. And the vernacular we use for both is the same. When people look at the Neanderthal genome, they say it's really, really human, but it's not human. We look at the Australopith pelvis,
closest we have that's outside of us. Yeah.
Right. When we look at the Australopith pelvis, and he's going to do this again with the Laetoli footprints, it's really, really human.
Yep.
But it's not human.
But it's not, and we'll get there. We're looking at that footprint, even I'm going, the footprint's not the same. We'll get there.
It's not identical. Okay.
It's not the same. No, it's got the big toe. Yeah, we'll get there. We got a super chat here before we move on from Scientific Origins for $5. Found this $5 on the ground after my chem lecture today. Pretty sure it belongs to you two amazing science communicators. Keep up the good work. That is very kind of you.
Let's go.
Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to play, this is like, what am I up to here? Like 20 minutes, I think I'm up to. Yeah, we're going to give this like less than a minute, and it's basically, I just want to show it. We don't need to address this, but I just want to show that like the conspiracy, because I've talked about this at length, other people have talked about this, that young Earth creationism is at its heart a conspiracy theory. And because it requires this coordinated effort among literally millions of people to suppress and misrepresent evidence. So this is a good example of that.
It's exciting being a creationist. Now look at these very distinctly.
Just drink for. It's a great time to be a creationist.
You can tell who pals around with who just by their catchphrases.
You can.
You know, like
You definitely can.
it's
Yep.
really funny.
It's bad. Yeah. I'll say, if you're as far down the rabbit hole as we are, you can tell. It's
You know, yeah.
You know exactly who's talking to who.
Ganging with who.
you know.
Look distinct apish looking skulls. Interestingly enough, these skulls are not found with a human skeleton. They're found by themselves, crushed in 100 pieces.
No, wait a second.
No, hang on.
No, wait a second. That's so weird because I feel like we just looked at a bunch of examples of that. That's so strange, Dan. I don't know why someone would say something like that. Also, we probably don't have time to go over it, but just for my own satisfaction to make sure that I get this off my chest, will you let me share my screen really quickly so that I can show you guys? I know Dan's like, please, God, no. I'm so freaking done with this. But he invited me on. I told him that I wouldn't shut up about this. But
It's so bad. No, this is a great example of how do you know the level of seriousness that someone has in a field? You talk to someone in their field and see how they react. And Erica is reacting with the horror that I react with when I hear, like, I don't know, hypothetically, some young Earth creationists say there's no selection in the mitochondrial DNA or something. Like,
Right.
Like,
right.
did you
Yeah.
really say
Hypothetically.
that? Like, really just say that? Yeah. So let me take this down and put this up for you. Here you go.
Okay, rapid fire. Australopithecus anamensis. Again, this is our oldest australopith. You already find in these graphs here, looking specifically at the canines, derived aspects of them. We have Ramidus here, anamensis here in green, already moving in that modern derived direction with the canines. You guys can pause this and take a look if you want, but you can believe me when I say we say the same thing with the molars. We see the same thing with the palatal shape and the mandibular canine size relative to the post-canine or premolar and molar canine or tooth size in general. You see it with the shape of the jaws. You see it with the inclination of the tibial shaft or the long portion of the tibia. You see it with the tooth row and the relative sizes of each of the individual teeth. Remember, we're still in the oldest member of Australopithecus, and we're already seeing more human-like traits as compared to older, earlier apes. You can look at the structure of the face and neurocranium. Here's a phenomenal geometric morphometric analysis here, where you can see in the lighter, hotter colors over here, Paranthropus robustus and Paranthropus boisei. And then here we have in blue our Australopiths. And then all the way over here, we have gorillas and chimpanzees. That's so weird. It's almost like the Australopiths are really, really different from chimps and gorillas with regard to their overall facial shape. Here's the same paper, but looking at the dimensions from above. Then you can do the same thing with Australopithecus afarensis or Lucy species. Here's a bunch of characteristics you can pause and take a look at for the diagnostic criteria of afarensis's head. Here's a bunch of human and chimp versus one another characteristics to show you where Australopithecus maps. In nuchal area height, it's intermediate between humans and chimps. In the basi-occipital length, it's human-like. In the basi-occipital length divided by the biorbital bar times 100, this is just a formula, it's more human-like. You can do the same thing with the bientoglenoid bar and the bientoglenoid divided by the biorbital bar, human-like or intermediate and then human-like. Over foramen magnum position, foramen magnum orientation. In position, it's human-like. In orientation, it's chimp-like. We could go over and over and over and over.
Just if I understand that last one correctly, it's at the bottom rather than the back, but it's angled more like a chimp rather than straight up and down like a human.
Yes. And you can see this in the picture
very
here,
clearly
right?
from the figures, yeah.
Like, you can just see this in the figures themselves, and then in this picture taken from Kimball and Rock, or the figures are taken from Kimball and Rock, Bill Kimball and Yola Rock, and then you can see chimpanzee angles to the back, Australopithecus angles to the back, human forward angles down, Australopithecus kind of intermediate but mostly forward, and chimpanzee all the way to the back. Like, the skulls, Dan, they're not just ape-like. And what they mean when they say ape-like is they mean non-human ape-like.
Yeah.
Right? They don't mean ape-like because humans have all of the characteristics that define an ape. They're not comfortable with that. That's fine. Like, whatever. They mean non-human ape-like, but Australopiths don't look like that. They look intermediate.
It's the same school of thought that says we came from a chimp-like ancestor. No, that thing would not have been we didn't literally descend from something that looked like a chimp. It's just this fundamental misunderstanding of how these relationships and processes actually operate in the real world.
Yeah. Completely.
Okay.
Anyway,
so,
sorry. I probably mispronounced some of those craniofacial measurements. I don't study the craniofacial dimensions, but
So these skulls do not.
the point is where things map.
There we go. Okay, I want to go to let me go to 2053 here, because we got the point there. The point is, he's like, these skulls, these are not actually the right skulls. It's a conspiracy, whatever. You could find them in articulation. Even Lucy has part of the skull. Like, it's there. You can just look at, now I'm not a skull expert, obviously, but you can look at like the radius of part of the brain case and learn a lot about the rest of the brain case based on that. Like,
or you can take the shards from Lucy and see which complete skull they map with, and then you can use that complete skull to learn more about like it's.
Hey,
anyways.
Look, you know what he didn't do that I think we just have to just appreciate, because it cleared at least the lowest hurdle possible for young Earth creationists, is he didn't say that they manipulated Lucy's pelvis to make it look
That's
more.
true.
He didn't say that. So you know what? Like, credit where it's due. He cleared the lowest possible bar.
But the only reason he did that is because he knew that that wasn't a compelling argument, and that the pelvis was still indicative of a clear biped, which is where this whole argument came from.
Yeah.
Like, he just...
Right. So we have about 2 minutes here, but really all I want to get to is when he shows a big version of a footprint and says that's a fully human footprint, and that's really all we need to see here. So let's do that. Yeah. And then the last little bit after that is radiometric dating, which we can knock out quick.
Yeah.
Here's another discovery. These are footprints that were fossilized in ash in Laetoli, Tanzania. They're discovered by Mary Leakey's team in 1976. And then in 2015, they found more footprints at a stratigraphically equivalent site called Site S.
Oh, so you accept that the relative dating of the... Don't even get me. I know. It's at this point, it's too much. The irony meter has already shattered into dust for exceeding its load limit. I know.
And like, why are the relative strata also in evolutionary order? Like, why?
It's weird.
That's so strange. Even if they're not millions of years apart, why is the relative order?
I have a video on this that I'm working on coming up, because I just got, this is just a little 30-second preview. I got, you in your bathrooms, the floors always get wet and it gets gross, and the bath mats, they get gross because they're wet, they don't dry, they get gross. So I got a bath stone instead. It's like a piece of slate that sits on your floor, but it's absorbent because it's not stone, it's diatomaceous earth. And so I'm going to have a video on how my bath mat disproves young Earth creationism.
Okay.
Because you look at the progression of the diatoms, there's no flood mechanism that can explain that progression, the formation of diatomaceous earth. There's no 1-year flood mechanism, single flood event that can explain that pattern, because you see a progression from, just like in the apes, more ancestral to more derived morphological characteristics among these unicellular eukaryotic organisms. Have these very intricate shapes to them. And so my bath mat disproves young Earth creationism. And it's this.
Jackson loves talking about the evolution of like zooplankton and stuff like that.
It's great.
But before we go on, Dan, I want to highlight something that someone in the comments has said here.
Yeah.
Geology Rock 7 says, why skip so much of the lecture? Isn't your goal to refute the claims that you skipped like 98% of it? Geology Rocks, I need to tell you, the parts that we're skipping do not contain information. And the reason we know this is because both Dan and I watched this video a couple of months ago, and then both of us watched it two times each
yesterday/today.
We've both seen this same lecture 4 times between the two of us.
This is the 3rd time for me.
Yeah, okay, there you go. This is the 3rd time today for me as well.
So there you go. Yeah.
The reason we don't go through it line by line is because this is Dan's stream and not my stream. If this was my stream,
we already. Hey, Erica, how long did we talk about a few hours ago? How long did we say this was going to take?
We said it was going to take sub 1.5 hours. We promised.
We said an hour to an hour and a half.
Hour to an hour and a half. That was a pipe dream, but
yeah, we both knew that was a lie.
We knew that. We knew that was a lie.
That was a polite lie we were telling ourselves.
Here's what I'll say to you though, Geology Rocks, because this is all fresh on my mind. I want to invite you watch this lecture. It's only 30 minutes, right? Christopher Rupe's lecture is only 30 minutes. And if there's anything in this lecture that you feel we did not adequately cover here, since this is my guest lecture specialty here, that's why Dan invited me on, email me at gutsatgibbon@gmail.com, and I will personally answer anything that you think I did not address adequately
Erica,
in this video.
I just want to point out you are already currently writing 2 books.
That is true, but that is true.
Careful.
But my editor, both my editor and myself, because I'm writing a chapter for a book, and then I'm writing maybe something.
I was
for myself.
referring to your dissertation, this project, and then yeah.
Oh, my committee's used to being disappointed. They're used to me being like, they are so used to me being like, the number of conversations that I've had that's like, they're like, maybe you should consider this. And then I'm like, okay, I guess I'll rerun the whole analysis. And then that takes 2 weeks of having to resection. It's misery. 3
We've
books,
all been there.
whatever.
We've all been there. It's fine.
I don't care though. I'll make time for this. I'll get a little less sleep one night.
There you go.
Email me, Geology Rocks.
That's a really nice offer.
That is an offer that I will follow through on, because it is about time for me to catch up on my emails. I usually do it about once every month or 2. So you'll be at the top of the list if you hustle.
There you go. I also, just from Gupdo 3 for $2. Thank you, Gupdo 3. Achievement unlocked. Don't lie about Owen Lovejoy. There you go. Tell me in the chat if you heard that in the System AI voice from my favorite book series right now.
Oh, Dungeon Crawler Carl.
If you know, you know. New achievement. All right. Are you doing DCC? You should do DCC.
I haven't gotten to it yet. I literally I finally am caught up again on all of the Sanderson stuff. I just finished Isles of the Underdark like last week, or like 2 days ago actually.
You should do DCC. All right.
Yep.
Let's what are we up to here? 2116. What are we doing? We're doing I want to get to the big footprint. We'll get to the picture of the big footprint.
Now, I don't know if there's any trained anatomists here, but you don't have to be one. Do those footprints look human or ape?
I want to get to the big footprint. There it is.
Is.
There's the one. Okay. The footprint, the big one there on the left is supposedly a fully human footprint.
I need you guys to understand, the Laetoli footprint thing drives me up a wall, because the Laetoli footprints are a trackway found in Eastern Africa. When they were first discovered by Mary Leakey and her team, Mary Leakey remarks that it's like, wow, these look remarkably human. Now, the age of the ash that they're in is quite old, right? We're talking 3-ish plus million years of age. I think it's 3. Oh, he has it on the thing. I was going to say 3.4, but he has 3.7 here for the Laetoli footprints. That's old. That's too old to be genus Homo, certainly. And so it is an appropriate age with Australopithecus. So...
Great question, Prixie. Hey, how big are they?
They're not huge, you guys. They're like little itty bitty footprints. But here's the main problem. We set up a really great hypothesis here. Because if Australopithecus is human-like but not quite human, that should be reflected in the footprints, right? If they're fully human footprints, they should look like fully human footprints. And
which, by the way, one of those is on screen, and it does not look like the fossil.
No, it doesn't. I'm about to share something else, though, that I think is going to really nicely demonstrate what we're looking at here. Because scientists realize that it's like, okay, it's one thing to get down and be like, the transverse arch is a little bit shallower. The longitudinal arch doesn't quite look the same as we see in a human, or like there's a lot more weight bearing on the heel than we thought, or whatever. It's another to actually quantify that. And paleontology, as I hope you guys have appreciated throughout this show here, actually does a lot of quantifying. You just don't see it because it's not as sexy as looking at the bones. So I'm going to share with you guys a test that some paleoanthropologists ran, because so many people were saying, look how human these things look. Paleontologists were like, let's test it. So what they did is they took an unshod human, which is a human who's not wearing shoes, and they had that human walk in some artificial ash that they created. And then they compared that to, let's see, share that. That should be, is that it? No, wait. I need Bergman final. Hold on. That's what this is.
I love how you're not the only one who does this. I have a bunch of files that are named based on which debate I created them for.
Literally.
So I've got like Hovand macroevolution and Donnie
Final
Neanderthals. That's where all my Neanderthal is. It's in the Donnie Neanderthal file.
The Donnie Neanderthal file, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, so these scientists were like, there's a great way to test whether or not the Laetoli footprints look more human-like or more chimp-like, right? Which is going to be our analog for something that is more basal or primitive. So what they did is they took an unshod human, a chimpanzee, and they had them walk across ash, and then they took like an ash layer, artificial ash layer that they then took topography
Hang on,
of.
hey Erica, sorry to interrupt. I just want to address this comment real fast. Again, from Geology Rock 7. Why not read the quote? Are they described as looking morphologically human? They are described as Homo sapiens footprints. That is the argument that is being made. That these footprints were made by anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens. That is the argument that is being made here, to be clear.
So Geology Rocks is asking whether or not Mary Leakey thought they looked morphologically human. They were described as looking morphologically derived human-like, which
is
they
not
do.
The same,
they
not
look
the same
human-like.
thing as Homo sapiens.
In fact, Australopithecus afarensis' pelvis looks human-like, right? Australopithecus' canines look human-like. They do not belong to a human, though. And neither do these footprints, as I'm about to show you quantitatively, which is the best way to do science, unfortunately. So let's actually look at the results here. On the left here, highlighted by my cursor, you can see the human footprint. The chimp is very obvious with that big toe divergent off to the side. It's abducted. And then in the middle is our Laetoli footprint cast. And you can see that the Laetoli footprint is way more similar to the human than it is to the chimp. Obviously, Australopithecus was bipedal, which means it's going to be more similar to a human. But as we said earlier, the prediction that evolution would make for a bipedal ape man is that it should be more like a human, not identical to it. And that's what this figure over here, this is Hatala et al., shows you. We have our chimpanzee mean and range with the human in the middle and the Laetoli footprints here on the right. And we're basically just looking at the depth at the medial midfoot. So this is just one of many characteristics that they looked at. But this is one that I think displays the intermediate nature of the Laetoli footprints quite well. The human mean with a bunch of outliers. Laetoli maps more with humans than it does with chimps, but it's not in the human-like quartile, right? We're looking at the Laetoli footprints as something that is distinct, but more human-like than it is like anything else. That is not Geology Rock 7, what we would expect from something that was just plain human. The spread, if these were human footprints, would look like the human spread that you see there. Highly variable, but primarily that measurement is going to be pretty low. That depth is going to be pretty low. Instead, what we see is a pretty strong mean, a pretty strong clustering of the data that is not within the human primary range. And I don't know what else to tell you, right? If Australopiths were bipedal, their footprints look human-like, but they don't look like human footprints. Right. Like they don't look quantitatively as if they are literally belonging to Homo sapiens.
It's the same pattern we saw earlier with the skeletal measurements, where you had the cluster for Homo sapiens, and then the Australopiths were closer to Homo sapiens than they were to any other cluster, but they were outside of the range of Homo sapiens. That's what we see here, this time with footprint characteristics, where they are closer than they are to the other things, but they're outside of the range.
And I'm so sorry, Dan. This is just ridiculous. What else would a transitional species look like? If it looked exactly like chimps, creationists would say a chimp made it.
It's just a chimp.
If it looked exactly like a human, they would say just humans made it. The only way that evolution can make a case is if it is actually transitional, and that's what the data say.
Yeah.
What else could you want? Anyways, that's all I have to say.
As Bergman said, if humans actually evolved from earlier ape species, what do you expect the fossil record to look like? Basically like what it does. He said that to you in your debate, was that 6 months ago at this point?
Yep.
He said that to you. So, pretty much, that's what we're looking at. Yeah. So I'm going to add Rupe back to the stage here, and I'm going to go to, we can just jump to the 23-minute mark, and we'll do a little over a minute and a half on radiometric dating, and then we can call it good, because this is so, again, this is dumb. Let's do it.
But again, it dates to
Hang on. Nope, we're not listening to you right here. We're doing 23. Here you know exactly what's coming.
Yeah, right.
Let's briefly touch on the dating methods before we close. So those footprints found in ash were dated using a common method in the field of paleoanthropology, especially years ago when they were establishing the timeline. And that potassium argon dating that method has some serious flaws. They all have flaws and assumptions, but this one is fun to present because it's so obvious. So here's Mount Narohu, this is in New Zealand, and we know when the volcanic eruptions happened. We have photographs, we have video evidence. This is a historical event. So we know when the lava came out of the volcano and when it turned hard into rock. So we know the true age of the rock based on the time in which it crystallized.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we test the assumptions of this method, we find something revealing. Even though we know it happened just, in 1975, for example, it dates 3.5 million years old. And there are many examples of this, even in their own literature. These are a number of historical eruptions giving dates oftentimes millions of years old. And if I had more time, I'd explain why and what's happening. But it's basically invalidating one of the fundamental assumptions of the radioisotope dating methods.
All right, since he doesn't have the time to do it, we can take 2 minutes to do it. So here's what he's doing. He is using a dating method that has a time interval of validity, which we experimentally determine that is, in the past, too far from where the actual eruption is. So the amount of the daughter isotope that's accumulated since the eruption is below the background reading of the instrumentation that does the test. So at some point, you get to, if a test can measure from 1 million years ago to 1 billion years ago, let's just say, right? And you measure something that's 900,000 years ago and 500,000 years ago and 100,000 years ago and 50, they're all going to read 1 million years ago because that's the lowest reading you can get from the instrumentation. That's what he's doing here. When you do it correctly, you get it, when you use the right techniques for the rock that you're dating, you get it to the year, and the best example of that is of course the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, 79 CE. You date those rocks, you get it to the year. Obviously there's an error bar, but you get it exactly where we know the eruption took place.
Let me provide that to our viewers so that they know which publication that was.
It's a classic.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's a classic example. And actually, something really funny happened. Milo Mini Minuteman earlier this year released "Were we wrong about the dating of Pompeii?" And I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting because that would be pretty crazy." And then the video was like, "Was it actually in the?" I don't remember the exact details, but it was something to the tune of was it actually in the fall instead of the spring? Like the dating.
Oh no! It's like based on where people were hanging out outdoors in the city, we might have gotten the season wrong.
Literally, but this is famously within the calendar year.
Yeah.
So the title of the paper is 40 Argon 39 Argon Ages of the AD 79 Eruption of Vesuvius, Italy from January 2007 by Lamphere et al. Published in the Bulletin of Volcanology. And as Dan said, argon-argon dating was used to date the Mount Vesuvius eruption, which occurred thousands of years ago or long enough for parent to start decaying into daughter material. If you were to date a volcanic eruption tomorrow or 100 years ago or even 1,000 years ago, that's not enough time for the parent material to start decaying. It would be like trying to weigh a semi-truck on a microgram scale. It breaks the instrument. The instrument cannot handle it, right? And we know this is the case because when you wait long enough for the parent to start to decay, you get the calendar year age that matches historical records. It doesn't get any better than that, folks.
Yeah. The other thing, anytime creationists bring up radiometric dating, you can just say, explain the Oklo natural nuclear reactors, and if they can't, that's the ballgame, because the Oklo reactors, which we're not going to go through it now, Google it if you want, it's the coolest thing that's ever happened on Earth. It's literally the coolest thing that's ever happened on Earth. It's also one of the hottest things that's ever happened on Earth. Also, literally, because naturally occurring fission reactors, water-cooled, water-moderated fission. So it's a water-water fission reactor that occurred naturally about 1.8 to 2.1 billion years ago in what is now Africa, and it proves, because of we basically, the French were mining for uranium for their nuclear weapons and found discrepancies in the isotopes, and the only way to explain the discrepancies that they found was fission happening 1.8 to 2.1 billion years ago, in addition to the decay that's happening the whole time. And this is the critical part: everything at the time and since has to work exactly the same way we observe it to work now, and that includes decay. It includes fission. It includes neutron capture. So it's all of these variables that govern radiometric decay rates and other related processes are 100% confirmed to be constant going back at least 2 billion years. Creationists explain that.
Well, that's when Raw Matt comes in, and he was like, actually, the Earth is acting like a large centrifuge, right? I mean,
yes, the heavy uranium is deeper in the crust.
It's deeper.
It's like
it is fundamentally unserious. And
well, to be clear, I forget if it might have been Snelling or Tompkins who said, well, it's just speeding up the decay chain, that it's just happening faster. But fission and decay of uranium don't lead to the same, you split, it's not the same thing. It's different elements, plus the fission frees the neutrons that then the strontium isotope is capturing that you can't explain through simple decay. It's not the same process as creationists. You have to explain it.
And
Oklo kills it. It's just...
I mean, yes, and all you really need to do to find out how bad something is for creationism is to look at
samarium?
What is the expert in that topic saying about it, right? Which creationists are talking about it? If the geologists are talking about Oklo, then okay, like their ideas may be worth looking at. If the only person talking about Oklo are like YouTube randos, they don't have the Oklo thing solved.
No, they don't. Also,
right?
sorry, it was samarium, not strontium. Sorry, samarium 149 neutron capture to 150. Sorry.
It would be like if someone, to be fair, right, they have their work cut out for them. Because if someone said to me, explain why like physics actually just doesn't work the way we think that it does, I wouldn't be able to answer you. I would be like, I don't know, magic, right? But creationists are caught between a rock and a hard place in the case of something like Oklo, because they have to come up with like a naturalistically feasible mechanism to explain it. And they can't. It's very, very, I don't envy them.
I mean, they could just say magic and be done with it, but then we're not doing science anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian Nichols says that is a no-no, so...
Yeah. So, the next thing he does here, Erica, at like the end of the 24 minutes, cutting into 25 here, is he pitches... Stupid bunny with the ear bones. He pitches contested bones, and then he goes into the last, like, 4 minutes or so, everybody, are the tried and true, don't risk your eternal soul for bones. Some rocks that we found in the ground, trust the Bible, and we don't need to watch that.
That sounds hyperbolic. That's not hyperbolic. At one point he says, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but not much. He's like, don't trust some dusty old bone. Okay, there, you just let him play.
There you go.
There you go.
For a few scattered, misclassified bones.
There you go. Scattered, misclassified. Like, folks, I don't know. I just don't know what to do with this, right? It's not like people eyeball these bones. They're measured, they're scanned, they're run through statistical analyses, and they are intermediate. There are features of bones that some of the features of the same bone will pull themselves in one direction as more derived, and then others will appear more primitive. There is no way to argue that all of the Australopith remains are actually just human remains. It cannot be done. But that's where we're at. I mean, again, I must stress that it's like if the argument doesn't convince Donnie Deals,
This is a guy, let's remember, who has gone back to hydroplate.
Yeah, he's back on hydroplate.
He's back on hydroplate, but he's not buying what Rupe is selling here.
That's so true. He's literally back on hydroplate, and then Rupe's idea, he was like, he did a whole video that was like, Lucy is not a pygmy human. Like he was straight up like, that's not going to work. Yeah. And that's because it's just so nonsensical. It requires, and this is the analogy that I always use for specimens like STW 573 or MH1 and MH2, like these really complete articulated specimens. Rupe's idea requires that you've basically got like an Australopith and a human, and they're like running in a dead sprint at each other, like millions of years ago, or in Rupe's eyes, thousands of years ago. And they collide in just such a way that they quantum tunnel into one another, their bones just merging at the right places in the right time
there
to appear as though they are articulated and belong to different species simultaneously. It's not going to work. What creationists must cut their losses on this one, as the wonderful New Creation blog has already done, as even the infamous Donnie Deals has done, and say what we're looking at here is a group of apes that is unrelated to humans, but also look like apes.
Very similar to humans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just say that. Just say that. Just say it's a separately created kind that is now extinct, and they were really similar to humans. Done.
That's what New Creation blog did. That's what Donnie's saying now. It's like, and we're bipedal, but like, and Rupe is so close to this. He pitches, and I don't know, you might be able to pull it up here, Dan. He pitches his like creation model where he's like, okay, orangutans, gorillas, chimps, and humans and Australopiths are all separately created kinds of ape. And like, that's where he draws it already. But also Australopiths can't be bipedal. Like, if you're already going to go that far, why not just say that they are bipedal? Who cares?
Just, you're allowed to be bipedal, but like, we have separately created kinds that are vertebrates, that are gnathostomes, that are mammals, that are this, that are that, that are the other thing. So why can't you have separately created kinds that are bipeds? Why is that like the thing where that's
like I'll say this too. I've said this to Peter and I've said this to Donnie, right? Like, that doesn't fix their problem, because obviously the brain case size and the tool use and the teeth and all of these other minutiae within the bipedal characteristics still overlap and irrevocably connect Australopiths to later hominins. But having a bipedal ape kind is just so much less silly than arguing that these things were knuckle walkers or pygmy humans.
So
I mean, those two perspectives are indefensible. Yeah. So that's where we're at. And Christopher Rupe's idea is interesting. It's funny. There's a lot of stuff that he says in this that is just directly against what he says in the book that he published on the subject.
In the book he wrote on this, where he apparently learned nothing.
Nothing. At one point, he's talking about how there's no reason to think that, like, Ardipithecus, a different hominin that lived before Lucy's genus Australopithecus, or the species within Australopithecus. And he's like, we don't know that this thing was upright. And then he's showing the skull, and he's showing the bottom of the skull. Like, there's a picture of the bottom of the skull. Which has the
foramen magnum out the bottom. Yeah,
which has it out the bottom. And you're just
clearly upright. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what to say. Or rather, I think he shows... That's actually a misrepresentation. He shows a figure that is from a paper that he had to cut this bit out, and directly adjacent to it was that anterior foramen magnum. I think that's what it was. Let me double check. Because nope. Wait. Yeah. Yes, the second thing that I said. I don't know. I just, so it wasn't as bad as I thought. Sorry.
Erica, what I hear is you're saying out loud a conversation that often happens inside my head, which is, are they this dumb, or are they just lying to everybody?
I think the third option is the one I default to more often than not, which is just like pathological levels of cognitive dissonance. I think a lot of times, if they find something that they think can maybe work if you squint, that's good enough. Like, and they're like, we'll call it that can work. I mean, to Rupe, it's like the astronomical unlikelihood of all of the postcrania of Australopithecus that looks bipedal actually just being a misidentified human bone that's
hilarious.
Unreal.
Yeah. So, folks, that's Christopher Rupe's talk from the 2025 Genesis Apologetics Conference. I just want you to appreciate that Erica had to subject herself to that talk 3 times in the last 24 hours. Erica, I thank you for your service to the cause. Thank you.
You know, people say that a lot. People will be like, thanks for doing what you do. Man, thanks for having the patience that you have. We're so glad that somebody's watching all this. I love it. I do it because I love it. I love this stuff. This is fun for me.
We are broken people.
we're broken people, but there's also the ulterior motive where it's like, I always learn something new when I'm researching any creationist topic. I always figure out a little bit more about something that I didn't appreciate as much. Like it's great. It's a great experience. Geology Rock 7, email me. You keep yapping it up in the chat, having questions. Just email me. Let me
do it.
Look, do it. And here's my thing: do it while it's fresh in my mind. Again, this is the third time that I've seen this talk today, so do it while it's fresh in my mind. Ask me, or better yet, watch my Contested Bones Library of Errors series.
There you go. I learned a lot from that series. Everything that I said tonight that I was like, I already knew that. I'm pretty sure I learned from that series.
Well, that might be them.
It's probably true. Erica, you just dropped earlier today one of your videos that was it was a 3-part kind of thing. It was a Luskin Stadler deals, as in Donnie Deals.
Deals.
Thing. And I want to direct everybody to that. If for some reason, folks, you're here watching this and you're not already subscribed to Erica, I don't know how that happened, but welcome. Subscribe to Erica down in the description. She's linked down there. Erica, what do you have coming up in the, I won't even say near future, I'll just say in the approximate future?
Yeah, I would like to get out a video on this new Paranthropus hand. I've read the paper. I've got some notes on it. I'd love to sit and yap about it for a little bit. But my next big video is going to be this one that I've been working on for quite some time. I finally got it all recorded and edited down. Like, basically what I have to add is graphics, and like I want to do some animations for it, which is probably going to take a while. So I would anticipate that it's probably a month out for that big boy, maybe less if I'm lucky.
That's gonna be like Fellowship of the Ring extended edition. Yeah.
It's kind of a beast, because the way that it's structured, it's basically a history of creationism from its origin to like probably like Darwin's death, like thereabouts. Okay. I think I ended a little after Darwin's death, like right around Eugene Dubois, etc. And so it's like, okay, you know, what happened? Like, why the basic idea is like science and religion killed creationism in the 1800s. And then it asks this lingering question, why is it still here?
Why are we here? Yeah.
What happened?
Because Christian nationalism. That's why. That's the answer to the question. Spoiler. Sorry.
Unironically, people, I know I'm going to get busted up for this because my channel isn't political. That is actually the reason. It's fundamentalism in the early 1900s, from about like 1910 was when the fundamentalists came out. It's pretty straightforward, and it has a legacy that lasts today.
And then in the mid 20th century, you've got all of the Warren Court stuff, desegregation, one person, one vote, all that stuff. They needed another cause, and that's why. And then you had Roe versus Wade, so they latched onto abortion and evolution as the two culture war things that they could latch onto.
Then here's my big question. This is the punchline that I've going to tease for months, because all three, this is going to be separated out into like 3 major videos, and all 3 probably won't be out for 6 months or something like that. Here's my big teaser. Why isn't creationism on the rise again? What is going on, folks? They got all the pieces on the board.
Why are they losing money when fascism is ascendant and Christian nationalists literally control the federal government? Where young Earth creationism in all this?
Roe v. Wade is dead, and the Voting Rights Act is on the chopping block.
It'll be dead soon. Don't worry.
Yeah,
it's walking up to the gallows. Yeah.
So we're looking at exactly the perfect storm, perfect storm for them to try this again, and yet they're not. Why?
Because it never mattered in the first place. It was always about that other stuff. Yep.
It was always a means to an end. And my secondary argument is that the critical internet period between 2005 and now, America's youth has just been normalized. Like, evolution is just normalized to the American youth. Like, it's not, because you would think that even then, because anti-vax is still on the rise, right? And there's tangential connections there, but it's like, I think that a new science boogeyman was found. It got normalized, and there's another bag holder that we'll talk about later. So anyway,
I'm excited.
It's gonna be cool.
All of this.
It's gonna be cool.
So everybody should subscribe to Erica. Check that out. I've got some stuff coming next week. I have a video already available for channel members on one of the funniest things that's ever happened in the realm of young Earth creationism, involving an undercooked food product. No, he's not a food product. Undercooked. I don't even know how to describe raw mat. It's a raw mat.
Salmonella Matthew.
It's YouTube Skeletor and what his shenanigans matter. And then 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna have Dr. Zach Hancock on, and we are going to talk about Rob Carter and his recent crimes against population genetics. And after that, I've got some stuff. I mentioned my bathroom floor mat made of diatoms. That's going to be that we're going to feature that in a video. And of course, I've got the Winston Ewart stuff, which I promise I am still working on, and it will not end. Erica, is this how you feel all the time, every time you work on a video, where I'm just writing this and I keep finding more stuff, and I'm like, oh, I got to talk about this, I got to talk about that, and it just won't stop. So.
And I have a philosophy when I write videos, and this is why I'm long-winded. This is the core of like why I can't shut the hell up. Is I want anybody who listens to me talk about something, I want it to be accessible if you know nothing about the subject, which means that every time I talk about it, it requires a lot of background.
Yeah, I got to pause. Let me explain what this means. Now we can get back on track. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what I imagine is happening to you, because you'll notice that when you do that, more people watch it because people don't get scared off
accessible.
By stuff.
Well, it's that, and also as I read these papers and I go through and like document the problems with it, it's just like, oh, here's another like 20 minutes I have to explain this problem. Here's another very substantial problem that I need to explain, and it just like you string 3 or 4 of those together, and all of a sudden it's like 2 hours long. So I don't know. It's not going to be 2 hours long. I'm going to say that right away. It's not going to be 2 hours long.
Rookie numbers. And it's also annoying because it's like, if you do skip something, that's all anybody who's detracting will point out.
Yeah.
So you have to cover it.
Why didn't you talk about this? Because I already gave you 3 reasons why it's invalid. And you're going to be like, well, why didn't you talk about the 4th reason? Because I didn't have to, but fine.
I'm looking at you, Geology Rock 7. Email me.
I just want to if you know, you know. Just want to... If you know, you know. Thanks, Steve. I think that's a great place to leave it. That's a great place to leave it. Erica, thank you so much for lending your expertise to talk about Christopher Rupe and all of this related stuff. Folks, thank you all for being here. I will see you back here next week for the premiere of that Raw Mat video. Until then, stay healthy and don't get fooled. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.